2, 1. Good evening.
How's it going?
Dude, it's good to have you in here.
It's good to get me in here.
And I wore a sleeveless on purpose because you are responsible for all of this.
I am. I'm surprised we've gotten that much done. I trip out every time I see it.
Yeah, and I'm very proud of it. I get a lot of compliments, so thank you.
Nice. Well, thank you.
Yeah, man. Absolutely love your work, obviously. And how long have you been tattooing for?
Shoot, I started my apprenticeship back in 1998.
I was 1, by the way.
So a long time. I was about 1998. I was 20 when I started. And it's crazy too, because I had no idea I was going to be a tattoo artist.
Yeah.
But I was fascinated by tattoos. I grew up in the South Valley. You see people with tattoos, you know what I mean? They might not be the most quality or professional, but you see them everywhere. So it wasn't until my dad got his first tattoo when I was maybe about like 16 or so. And then I just started bugging him, Dad, I want a tattoo. He'd go with him to the shop, and he got his first tattoo at Fine Line. So I'd just sit there flipping through the flash racks into my mind. Like Calvin and Hobbes was the first thing. I was like, oh, I want a Calvin and Hobbes tattoo so bad. And just kept bugging my dad, let me have a tattoo when you're 18. Damn it, let me have a tattoo. So he made me wait till I was 18. A week before my 18th birthday, I went to a local shop. And it was a shop, a friend of the family, my dad used to date like his sister back in the day and all kinds of stuff like that. His brother had worked with us at the family business. So we knew him. It was the only place I knew to go. So I went and I was talking to him. He's like, He's like, well, let's call your dad. He called my dad on the phone. He's like, I got your son here in the shop. My dad's like, well, I guess he's already there. You know, this was 96, 97. So it was definitely a different time that you could just get a phone call and be like, hey, is it okay to get tattooed? You know what I mean? But yeah, and after that, it was just like, okay, I'm hooked. I think not even a couple weeks later, I was already back getting my second tattoo. And maybe about my 4th or 5th one, it really, really started to click for me. Like, God, I love this. What can I do? And started bugging him like, hey, you know, like, what do you got to do for this? What is there more to it? You know, started asking all the questions. And luckily, right as I was asking, his other apprentice had just finished apprenticing. He actually owns a shop here in town now, the original Duke City Inc.
Oh, okay.
And, Porky, and he finished just right before I started. And he was like, well, my apprentice is finishing. He's like, if you're serious about it, you come in, you know. And it just, there was no looking back after that.
That's so fucking crazy. So over 20 years ago.
Jesus.
And now, I mean, flash all the way forward, because it was in 2019 that you won Best Tattooer of Albuquerque, right?
2020, it was COVID year.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
How did that feel?
It felt good. It's just, you know, it's...
You want to bring the mic like a little bit closer?
Yeah. You know, it's one of those things. It's...
I'll help you out.
It's
finicky sometimes. I'll help you out.
Yeah. How's that there?
Yep, there you go. Perfect.
Cool. You know, it's one of those things. It's kind of a popularity contest. You know, you have people show up, but at the same time, it feels good because those are people that showed up for me. Mm-hmm. As people that saw, whether it was through the shop or whether people are familiar with my work and stuff like that. So it's people that showed up for me. So it's still really, really humbling.
Yeah.
No matter what. So it still feels good, you know? It's nice to think that people think so highly of me.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny because the way I found out about you was back when he still worked there, Jason at Astro Zombies. I believe that was his name. He had a really good Predator piece on his quad. And I was like, where did you get that done? It looked like a picture of the movie. And he's like, oh, yeah, this guy named Carlos, he does this, that, and the other for tattooing. And I was like, well, I want superhero tattoos. Is he a nerd? Because I don't want to get this done by anybody, you know? And yeah, then now 5 years later, 4 years later, that's absolutely crazy. So you've been tattooing in Albuquerque the entire time.
Oh yeah, I'm born and raised here, so I've always been here. Yeah.
So how do you, like, in your experience, how has tattooing changed like over the last 2 decades?
It has quadrupled in size, if anything. I mean, it's kind of crazy. We've been talking about this recently, like at the shop, because I can remember back in 98, whenever I started, that you can see the growth of artists. So these artists came from underneath this artist. Even the artist I apprenticed under, he came from this other shop. And I know other artists that came from that shop. And you can kind of see how it branched out. But nowadays, in that time, that branch has grown so much that you can't even like trace back anymore because it's grown so much. But I mean, the quality of tattoo artists we have here in Albuquerque is amazing.
I agree.
You have, I mean, don't get me wrong, you're going to have your shops. You always have your shops that are questionable. Same thing in barbershops. You have amazing barbers, and you have your barbers that you're going to go and just get a quick $25 fade. You know what I mean?
And she lets me know when I go to the bad ones. So,
but yeah, like it's wonderful seeing it. There's so many people coming in who not just have tattoo experience, but have like art experience too. So you're seeing that grow even more.
yeah.
Because it's elevating themselves as a form. Coming in like one of our artists at the shop, Chelsea, she had previous art training and stuff, and you can see it in her tattoo work. She's only been officially tattooing since her apprenticeship ended for about 1.5 years now. And
I was gonna say, is that the redheaded girl?
her hair is different color. Yeah, but
Okay.
yeah. Oh no, I think you might be thinking of Megan. Megan's amazing too.
Okay.
But yeah, Chelsea's another one. She apprenticed under Aldo, but
Okay.
like her work grows solid every day. Megan was the same way. Like she had some art experience coming in, but like once they got their feet tattooing, it was like growth. Every tattoo was just better, better. And you see it. And I see it with a lot of these younger artists nowadays. It's crazy. It's crazy to think that I've been doing it for so long, and these people that come in and it's just like fully formed. It's like, oh my God, you're just amazing.
Yeah. So, like, how well do you think being able to draw, whether it's just drawing on paper, painting, or whatever kind of art form that takes, and then translating that to tattooing, how seamless can that be, or can't it be?
It's hard. It's definitely hard. There's some mediums where there's certain tricks and things that you can learn from every medium, whether it's painting, color pencils, watercolor, like a lot of those have certain techniques that you could kind of cross over. It depends on your tattoo style, really.
Yeah.
But like for me, I like working a lot in color pencil, and there's certain techniques that I can use in color pencil that I see transfer over to my tattooing. Like, okay, the way I cross hatch these colors together, I kind of do the same thing whenever I go to color or tattoo and stuff like that. So I can see it, but it's its own challenge. Mm-hmm. It's like learning another medium. You can't do certain tricks with watercolor that you could do with oil. There may be like a little bit of crossover, but they're different mediums. So you still have that struggle with it. And like I say, every time you can't get comfortable tattooing and thinking, I know everything, I'm fucking dope. You know what I mean? Because every tattoo, I could sit down and go, oh my God, this tattoo is going to be easy. I'm going to knock this out in 20 minutes. And 40 minutes later, you're like, oh, what the heck's going on? You know what I mean? Every skin is different. People are different. You could be outside in the sun all day, so your skin's like tougher. So the minute I go to, it's not going to go in as smooth as it would on somebody else who's like lighter skin, never outside all the time. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's every tattoo is a damn challenge.
So when you had first started, like, what were the techniques that you, like, no shit, had to get down first? Like, if you couldn't get the basic, like, A through C, I mean, you're not going to really go too far.
Oh, they're the simple ones, the ones you always think of. It's like lining, coloring, and shading.
Yeah.
And the quality of that, how well you lay that line work in, make sure that you got like the proper depth going so that tattoo is not going to fall out. It's not going to be too deep. It's going to last good. Your shading, you need to learn because you don't want it to be too dark. If it's too light in a couple of years, like none of that's going to be there. The coloring, it's going to be patchy. It could be, so those are your foundations you're going to build off of.
Yeah.
It's like having a clay statue. You got to start with that wire frame, and that's pretty much what everything in tattoo is based off of. Those three things.
Right.
Your lining, your shading, your coloring, because that is going to determine how everything comes out.
Yeah. So like, because I don't have any history in art, like, whatsoever. I can barely like draw stick figures when I was a kid. So like, what's your method of approaching a tattoo all the way up to like applying it? I know every tattoo is different, every skin is different, but like, I mean, you're using needles into skin, and that's so much different than a pen on a paper. It's like, how would you how would you approach mine? I guess.
Like leading up to putting it on the skin. I mean, even then, it's just it's designing it. It's all drawing it, making sure that it's going to be readable as a design. Say like with one of your pieces, because they came from a comic book image. Mm-hmm. So I can replicate that image exactly like it is on the page, but it doesn't mean that it's going to heal that way or look that way over time. So as I'm redrawing it, I need to make sure in the back of my mind, is this going to work as a tattoo? Is this line work going to hold up? Are these color values going to stay, or is they just going to bleed
Right.
together over time or just disappear. Like, some artists crazy heavy hatch work, so even inking. And I've learned over time trying to replicate comic book art a couple of times. Like, not all the time is that going to work. Over time, it's just going to become just a big dark mess over years.
Right.
So you need to make sure how it's going to translate onto the skin.
Yeah.
So no matter what, I have it in the back of my head how I'm going to work this. Make sure my lines are clean. Make sure my blacks are really going to be solid. Have either a smooth blend into the color or have a clear defined style. So everything looks good from far, and everything's going to look good 10 years down the line.
Yeah.
Which is one of the hardest things, because you got to tell people, because sometimes people want little things that are highly detailed. And you have to tell them, like in a few years, it's not going to be good. I've had people that get quotes, like Bible quotes and stuff, and I've seen them now whenever they come back in to get tattooed, and sometimes you can't even read it, no matter how clean I did it, but it's just because of how small it is, and that ink spreads over time. So it's one of those things, bigger is always better. And it's true. It's true. That's why you see some of the traditional artists, that's almost the best way to go. That's why you see some of these old military people from the 30s and 40s, and you look at their tattoos, and even if that skin's still wrinkled and even if it's still kind of blurry, you can still read it, because
Right.
that solid line, those solid colors, they last the longest. They're just clear and legible.
Well, you bring up a good point with the old school tattoos holding so well, and now with like social media and like the Instagram, and you bring up like people getting the smaller tattoos, the cute little tattoos. How much of an influence do you think like social media trends have had on like the type of requests that you get, and even like the clientele that come in? Do you feel that affecting it a lot?
Oh yeah, huge. Tattooing, it's no different than anything else, whether it's clothing, whether it's music, it's still subject to trends. And I've been in this and paying attention to tattoos since the mid-90s, so I've seen those trends kind of go up and down. I've dealt with them in my career. And it's you see, and once the internet became available, and it's not just tattoo magazines, it's not just flash off the walls, you start running into Google Images. You start running into, once Pinterest became a thing, then it's not just images, it's what's popular images, you know what I mean? So somebody's going to be like, oh my God, look at these cute little hearts. Instead of being like, I saw somebody walking down the street and they have this cute little tattoo. Now you can go online and look, and then here they all are. Here's this infinity loop. Here's this feather. You know what I mean? Here's this dream catcher.
The dandelion breaking off into butterflies.
Yeah. Here they are. There's hundreds and hundreds of pictures of them.
Yeah.
And so it definitely changed it, because now all of a sudden what could have just been a popular image, whether say like in the early 2000s, the butterfly and tribal on the lower back, where it was just like a college girl thing, because they were all going to school together, and they're like, oh my God, that's so cute. Now you could go online, you see all this stuff, so everybody can be like, oh, that's so cute, I want that, that's perfect,
Yeah.
And used to laugh all the time, because when you're driving and you see that stuff like on the back of window decals and stuff, whether it's like the infinity turning into birds and stuff like that, and you go, oh look, there's that tattoo design.
That's funny.
Because it's not just limited to skin. People are putting it on their cars.
So how, just on that specific space, how painful is the lower back? Because I'd imagine that is not fun.
It's not a fun spot. The lower back sucks.
Yeah.
There has been rare people that I've ever tattooed their lower back that they've taken it and been like, oh, that's nothing. It's been a pretty intense piece for a lot of people. Some reason that's just, there's a lot of nerves going on back there.
Well, because I feel like, because again, I can never speak like into the mind of a tattoo artist, but like stuff like the super trendy spots, the lower back, especially in women, like the lower back, the ankle, the wrist, even like behind the ear. You see someone come in, let's say it's like a young male or female, 18, 19, 20-year-old first tattoo, and they say, hey, I want my first tattoo like on my ribs, right? Do you ever advise them like, hey, this is gonna fucking hurt? Maybe you're not anticipating what you should be.
No, luckily, I mean, I wish I had done it when I was younger. I really do. I really wish I'd have did it when I was younger. But, those spots, it's funny that the popular spots are the most painful spots. Whether it's, like you said, the wrist, the top of the foot, your ribs, your torso, your lower back. Like, these are all not fun spots. When you're young, your pain tolerance is a lot better.
Yeah.
as compared to when you're old, because I'm at the point now where I have nothing but painful spots left, and they suck. But no, most of the time it's just telling people, just breathe. This is going to suck a little bit. Most of the time we build it up in our head so much more than it actually is, though. Then whenever it starts, it's like, oh, okay, I was expecting worse.
Right.
So it's good. So even if it sucks, it's still not as bad as what you're imagining in your head. It's mostly just telling people, breathe, relax, don't move.
Yeah, I'll never forget when you're doing my Punisher, and you had to do the super dark head and then the bottom. And you're like, hey man, this is gonna suck. Just keep that in mind. It's like, oh yeah, it's fine. And yet that I think this was the worst pain I've been in so far.
That's a sucky spot.
Yeah, for sure.
Even more than your Spider-Man, which is right on the bend.
Honestly, so I remember that being a little iffy. But other than that, Spider-Man didn't hurt too much.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah, Spider-Man didn't hurt too much. That didn't hurt. For people listening, I'm pointing at my wrist bone. The wrist bone wasn't too bad. It just felt funny.
See, and for me, the wrist bone was one of the suckiest spots. Like that
Really?
area, that area on the wrist bone, that was like one of those crappy spots.
And, it's funny. People that I tell, especially my girlfriend, they do not believe me. But this felt kind of good. I don't know why, but I was like, it's like kind of like a painful, soothing feeling. I was like, oh, this is it's kind of nice.
It's interesting. It's interesting the way the nerves are. It's interesting the way your body reacts to the nerves. It's interesting how one spot cannot hurt, but we'll move over not even a quarter of an inch, and it'll be the most painful spot ever. And it'll be like, what the heck just happened? It's funny. Like today, the guy that I tattooed today, I just tattooed him a month and a half ago. We did like a Charizard on the inner part of his forearm, and he was like, oh, that's not too bad. And especially it was like mostly painful around the edges, and we went and did a Darth Maul on the outside of his forearm, kind of just below his elbow for the people not watching. And he was hurting almost the whole time we were doing it. It was a completely different feeling for him today. I mean, he made it through, but you could tell he kept having to fidget and adjust himself. And it wasn't even half an inch over from the other piece. But
right.
Yeah, it's the body is crazy.
So, because I would imagine too, you kind of have to be very, very knowledgeable about the human body anatomy. And I remember when we were designing this one, again, obviously I knew nothing. I just wanted it straight down. No, because of how the forearm muscles move, you have to have a slight curve, or otherwise it's not going to hold. It's not going to heal properly. What do you find a lot of misconceptions like that, where people want it one way because they think their body works the one way, and you had to be like, hey, this is how it actually is going to take and heal, and so on and so forth.
Sometimes, yeah, definitely, because sometimes people have such a clear idea in their mind of what they want. Trying to tell them, you know what, that's not going to work because of where you want it, what you want, how it is in the tattoo. And you kind of have to, you got to know how to talk to people almost. It's a customer service job for sure. Oh, yeah. But you got to know how to talk to people. You can't just be like, this is the way it is. If you don't like it, don't do it. You know what I mean? Or fine, then let's do it and just you deal with the results. You know what I mean? But a good tattoo artist is going to be like, no, that's not going to work. If we make these small adjustments, it can work. Or if we do this and this, most time people are receptive for that. Every now and then you get people that are just like, no, this is my vision. This is what I want. And you either got to be, well, I'm not the artist for you, or it's going to be like, all right, then. Yeah. Let's do this. You know what I mean? And all hope to the wind kind of thing.
Have you had any crazy experiences like that where people kind of got irate with you?
Once or twice. I know I had a guy that he wanted a negative space thing on the inside of his arm. And everything that night was telling me, don't do this piece. But he was adamant about it. I even ran out of disposable tubes. I had to leave the shop and run back home and pick up an extra box from home. Everything was telling me not to do it. And sure enough, and I told him, you need an outline, because if not, it's not going to look good. If you just go straight red negative space, so it's the writing itself is just, there's no color in it. All the color is around it. So it's almost like if you took the word and punched it out of red.
Oh, it's like a stencil. He wanted a stencil on his body.
Pretty much. And then all the color on the outside just kind of just fades off. But it's red. Red's going to, with no outline, no nothing, that red's going to lighten. It's going to turn pink. It's not going to look solid or good, especially inside of your arm, And I tried to tell him, but he was like, nope, that's what I want. Sure enough, a couple months later, he called me. He was upset. wanting his money back because it didn't heal the way it wanted to.
Ah.
It was just, but it was one of those things. Like I said, everything in my gut was telling me, don't do this. Universe was trying to tell me, don't do this, don't do this. But I went with it against everything I thought. And sure enough, and those difficult times that I've had with customers, it's been like that. My gut and everything's telling me, don't do this. You're not going to be happy. They're not going to be happy. And you do it against everything. And sure enough, they're not happy. They come back at you.
So I would imagine that, because I mean, when he goes back to, hey, I want my money. He's like, well, I mean, dude, like, you chose this, you decided this. I'd imagine because every time that you have to go and get a tattoo over archetype, there's a paper you sign. And I'd imagine there's somewhere in that paper that says, like, sales are final, or something that protects the artist. There has to be something that protects the artist. Now, granted, I have obviously never read the paper that I sign every time. Almost an overly trusting person. But imagine you guys have to protect yourself somehow against that, right?
Oh, yeah. It protects us against, like, legal stuff and things like that. In the event, if people come back with you, you work with them, you do your best, you do everything you can to make it work. Well, let me touch it up. Let me fix it. If I can't do it, let me see if I can talk to another artist and maybe we can do something about that. You do everything you can to get to that step. Sometimes things are so bad, you look at it, you go, what was I doing? What was I thinking? And you feel bad enough that you're like, okay, I have to give a cut to the shop so I could at least give you my cut back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's only happened a couple of times, but there's been a couple of times I had to do that. It's just part of it. Sometimes you can't make people happy. Yeah. Sometimes you had a really bad day, which in this business you should not have bad days. But when you've been doing it this long, they happen, unfortunately.
Yeah,
you know
shit
what I mean?
happens. I mean, even doctors have bad days. Surgeons have bad days. I remember I was, God, I can't remember who the fuck told me this story, but I remember hearing a story firsthand that a relative of the person I was talking to, they had an operation done, right? So they had to do an operation in the abdomen, and as they were finishing up, sewed her up, sent her home. They realized like a day later, they left a scalpel in the person.
Holy crap.
And the person called, or ended up going to an emergency room that was in the same city, but it was a smaller place, like all hospitals obviously connected. They talked to each other, and they saw their medical history where they were last, and the lady went to a ER for abdomen pain.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Damn. That's crazy. I mean, the only equivalent I have to that is one time they were working on my truck at a Big O, and I guess they forgot a wrench under my hood.
Ooh.
And it managed to, I guess I hit a bump or something, and it locked itself against my frame and against the battery or something, so I kept getting electrical. I guess that's something that's kind of similar to that.
Holy fuck, that sounds bad. I don't know shit about cars, but that sounds fucking horrible. But on the flip side, on the brighter side of these kind of stories, what are some pieces that you've done that you're like, I knocked that out of the fucking park? I remember that as I killed that one.
It happens a lot. It happens. No, and it sounds funny because it's not. It's the same.
No, I'm glad. I'm very glad that's a fact.
It's the same whenever I get, the question, what's the favorite tattoo that you've done, or what's the best piece you think you've done? You know what I mean? It's like, well, last week I did this piece, but this week I did this other piece, and it could top that. The guy that recommended you to me, Jason, he has some dope pieces on him that I've done, and it's not just the Predator one. On the back of his leg, we had an alien queen. We had another Predator piece. He's gotten a memorial to his dog.
Wow.
And every piece had just been more solid than the last one. And it's just well, that was my favorite piece on you. And then we do another one. It's oh, shoot, look at that one. You know what I mean? It's looking at you. It's oh, shoot, that piece was dope. And then we do another one. It's oh, I like this one even more, And it's crazy. And it's one of those things. And it's going to sound kind of funny. But, every now and then I'll go through my Instagram and I'll scroll back to the beginning of my Instagram to see whenever I started posting a couple of years ago when I started up this new one. And I'll just kind of scroll down and, the artist that I was a couple of years ago, as long as I've been doing this, a couple of years ago, is not the artist that I am today. I could look back on pieces and go, oh, that's a good piece. But you can see that growth, and I don't know, that's crazy. That blows my mind to think that. I can look at pieces I did 10 years ago and I wouldn't think it's the same artist. You could still kind of see it's the same artist, but I don't know. It's just, it's crazy. Even just in a couple of years, the growth that I see in myself as an artist, but I don't see it because I do it every single day. All I know is, oh, that piece is dope. Oh, that one's dope. You know what I mean? So every week there's like the Darth Maul one I did today. That piece was freaking dope. But a piece that I did the other day was just as dope. So it's like, you know what I mean?
So what do you think is the biggest changes you've made over the last, as far as however long you've been doing it? Like, what do you think is the biggest improvements you've seen?
That's a hard one. I think overall, if there's one thing I've always been consistent at, it's my lining. I've always done really good, clean lining. But I've really committed myself to push myself and grow. Especially over the past 6 months. Everything that I've done, I've kind of just been personally working on myself. But at some point, I was like, you know what? Since I'm doing all this internal work, I want to push myself as an artist a little bit more, as a tattoo artist more. I want to learn. I want to grow. So I've been really focusing to try and grow more in other aspects, whether it's my contrast, which is, your lights to your darks, whether it's black and gray, whether it's color. Not just the cleanness, but the readability of my work and all these little things that I thought I was really good at before, but I want to be better now. Yeah. I want to keep growing. I don't want to just stay stagnant, which is one of the things I love most about tattooing, because it's like art. You don't ever there's constant growth in it. Every tattoo's a learning experience. Each piece provides its own, if I apply this color this way next to this color, look at the results. That person came back a couple months later. I got to see it. That looks dope. I need to remember I did that and figure out, you know what I mean? So like I love that constant evolution and growth of it. You can't ever stay stagnant at all.
Yeah.
Not to repeat myself, but it's true.
No, yeah.
But, yeah.
And do you find that you grow and you learn a lot from the people around you? Because every time I go in that studio, you guys are always like joking around, talking to each other. It's like a real family in there. So do you guys all feel like you have that like that camaraderie, that the ability just to learn from each other and pick up this, maybe shouldn't do that less, do this more, and like critique each other?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Any good shop, it should be like that. We are around other people. You can pick up and learn things from each other. The previous shops I was at, I didn't have that. I was around other artists, but I didn't have that growth potential. The only person I had to grow off of was myself. And there's only so far you could get. But once I came to Archetype, and even through all the people changes we've had over the past, almost 10 years that I've been with them, wow. It's still like there's just everybody brings something. And you could go and ask, hey, I'm going to do this tattoo. What do you suggest about this? Or this is giving me some trouble with this design. How do you help that? Even down to where we are now, whether it's just asking each other certain things, or what do you think about this? How can I do this? Or what did you think of this tattoo? Is there anything you would change? You know what I mean? But we do it to each other. It's like, oh, that piece was dope. I really like the way that you did that. Your line work, like Aldo's done some pieces lately that are more in his new school style. And just looking at him and going, dude, like the way you did your color blends, or the way you bounced this color off of that, like little things like that, just it blows my mind. And you kind of take that into your back of your head too and go, oh, the next time I do a tattoo like that, I'm going to remember that little trick or things like that. It's nice to have those people you can talk to and grow off of. And that was always one of the things with Archetype, even when I started, is having that with each other, because I was missing that for so long. And having a shop where you can be like, hey, that's dope. Hey, that's dope.
Yeah, what was so cool is like I think pretty much every time that I've gotten a tattoo there, I'm pretty sure it was, although you go, hey, check this shit out. Look at that.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, you get to be a little braggadocious sometimes. Like, oh, look at this piece I did. Or, hey, look, you're not busy. Come here. Look at this real quick, And sometimes you got to show them off. You're like, hey, look at this sleeve we just finished or something,
No, yeah, I think that's awesome, man. And so like as far as like what I've always been curious about with like doing cover-ups or doing changes, like what do you feel like is the hardest like aspects of a tattoo to cover with something brand new?
I love cover-ups. I love the challenge of cover-ups, but sometimes there's some pieces that either don't work, whether they are in there too dark. There are some artists who won't do cover-ups unless you get laser treatments and lighten them up enough. Oh, wow. I like looking at it and going, if we can make this design that you want work, if I can figure out how to position it just right, that I could lose things here and there, then cool, we're golden. But every now and then somebody has like a nautical star, and they want to cover it up with like a hibiscus flower, which is just all open petal and leaves, that there's no way it's going to work. You know what I mean? Like, how are we supposed to do this? And you kind of got to explain it to them and talk them through it. But I love the challenge of a cover up. There's got to be a way, but it's always got to be the new piece has to work. I have to be able to at least lose most of the details and elements of the new tattoo. And I always tell people we might not get every single line covered up, but what we put on top is going to be so much more amazing that you're not going to care. So we can have like a rose or something that's, say, like a rose that's covering up a star or something. Every now and then you're just going to get that one little line that there was nothing you could do because you couldn't position something just right. But that new tattoo is so amazing that you're going to look at it, you're not even going to care. Yeah. And that's kind of how I approach it. But
have you ever, I mean, videos like this go fucking viral on YouTube all the time, but like, have you had any like kind of like crazy tattoos or like really like offensive tattoos you've had to cover up? Have those ever walked in or?
No, nothing too crazy or bad. I've always said, because I've had people ask me, like, have you ever done anything really crazy? I don't know if I just don't have, like, a low constitution when it comes to that stuff. Like, things don't freak me out or things don't go like, oh, my God, what were you thinking? That nothing's ever been too shocking to me. But I've never really had anything that I've covered up the occasional gang tattoo. Never anything too crazy, though, that people have come in, like, and it's like, dude, why are you even walking around with that sort of thing?
Right.
You know?
How often do you have people like come in and be like, "Hey, I want my boyfriend's name tattooed on me, or my girlfriend's name tattooed on me"? Is that? I know it's a huge stereotype, but is that like a common thing that you actually see?
Or, oh yeah.
No shit. Why?
People do it all. You know what? People do it all the time. There used to be a point years and years ago where you tell people, like, "Are you sure you want to do that?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Think about it." You know what I mean? But it got to the point to where, if they're not going to, they're going to go somewhere else and get it no matter what. If they have it in their head or they're trying to save their relationship or they're so in love that they got to do it that they're just going to, you know what I mean? They're going to get it no matter what. That it's just like, you know what? If this is the name you want, cool. Where do you want it? You know what I mean? I've covered up my own work when it's come to names. You know what? I know better. I know 100% better than to do it. And I still had 2 ex-wives, and I had both of their names on me, and I had to cover both of them up myself, knowing full well better.
Like tattooing yourself?
Yeah.
You've tattooed yourself?
Oh, yeah. Like 80% of the stuff on my legs I did myself.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I love getting tattoos, and also you're super light-handed, so it makes it very easy to get tattoos from you, I gotta say. That's like more than half the reason I kept coming back is because you're a fucking nerd and you love superheroes, so you get it. And it wasn't incredibly painful, it's just so fucking light-handed. But needles freak me the fuck out. I had to recently start getting on TRT, and the first time I did it, they're like, because my plan was like, yeah, I'll just pin myself, I'll be okay, it's not too bad. And they were like, well, because I had I think I had either just gotten done or I was right about to finish my like super deep weight cut that I was doing for a competition. So I had like no meat on me, right? And they were like, well, you don't have enough fat in your glutes, so you're going to have to do your quad. And I was like, oh, that's fine. That's not a problem. I don't know anything, right? And so I remember just like, I'm sitting there, I've got my pants down, I've got my underwear rolled up, and I'm just like, I like held the needle. I was like, fuck, man, I don't know if I can do this. I finally did it. The moment the needle came out, I passed out. I was like, oh, so tattooing yourself. Oh my God.
Dude, I get that all the time. People are scared of needles. Needles, as you know, getting tattooed, needles are not the same thing. It's a deep tissue shot.
Hell no.
It is not the same thing.
Hell no.
I have an auntie and a cousin who are very diabetic that they have to, do constant insulin blood checks and things like that. Mm-hmm. And, they every day they just got so used to that. Mm-hmm. Of having to draw blood and give themselves shots and stuff like that. It always tripped me out. Tattooing's, obviously, it's not the same. You're only going through about, a few layers of skin. It's not that deep. The pain sucks. The hardest part is getting past that natural urge to not hurt yourself. It's that sitting there and going, I need to stick this needle in my skin and just go. And you just kind of have to brace, get there, and just start going because you don't want to hurt yourself. It's a natural human urge.
Right.
So getting past that mental block of just being like, oh my God, I'm going to do this. And then, okay, we're just doing it. And you can't pull back. You can't be like, I don't want to. You literally just got to get that machine in there and just run away with it.
God, yeah, fuck that. Because, there's been many nights where I've gone down just a YouTube rabbit hole of, what's it called? Ink Master. And the judge is like, well, you don't have a canvas. You're going to have to tattoo yourself. And the guy's like, okay, fuck it. And they just start scribbling. And I'm like, what the fuck?
It's, you know what? It sucks. Trust me, it sucks. Especially when you're tattooing your legs, because there's a lot of spots that you could reach on your legs that are not fun.
Yeah.
Like back in October or so, I started tattooing my knee because I wanted something done, and it's been rough. I've done a couple sessions on it, and I've been reluctant to go back because it sucks. And doing it myself, but you're kind of in the zone when you're doing it because you're concentrating so hard on it.
Interesting.
That you're focused on what you're doing, but you're focused on the pain as well. So you're not sitting there. You don't get to just sit there and go to your happy place and, zone out and get it done. You're concentrating, but at the same time, because you're concentrating so much, you could just kind of like grit your teeth and get through it.
See, it's funny you say that because, and maybe that makes a lot more sense because you're concentrating so well. But with me, whenever I've gotten tattooed, like if I'm watching you do it, it makes the pain a little bit less. I like see what's going on. I'm like, oh, well, this is neat. It's not like I'm going through endless pain and a picture magically appears. Like watching it actually happen for some reason makes it a lot easier.
Oh, I'm the same way when I'm getting tattooed. I love watching it because mentally I could prepare myself. I could go, oh, look, he's about to go over this area here, so you kind of know, and it makes it a little easier to get through. You can watch the progress along. I spent 6 hours on my back getting a tattoo, and it felt like he was here, he was there, he was everywhere. And because I couldn't see it and I couldn't feel it, it was just like, all right, I'm seeing penguins, I'm going to my happy place, I'm breathing, I'm doing everything I can, because you don't know where it's at. It feels like he's under here, but he's like over here on this side, you know what I mean? It's like, it's crazy.
So I'm assuming it's a Fight Club reference.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so but separate subject, but did you see how China changed the ending of Fight Club?
Oh, I believe it.
Have you seen the screenshot though?
No.
Oh, let me find it for you real quick. So they pumped out, they re-released Fight Club, or they like allowed Fight Club to finally come out in their country. Let's see, China Fight Club ending, and so right before they're about to burn down or blow up the buildings, and Tyler and Marla are in the skyscraper. There's a text screen that comes up. And the text screen says, through the clue provided by Tyler, the police rapidly figured out the whole plan and arrested all criminals, successfully preventing the bomb from exploding. After the trial, Tyler was sent to a lunatic asylum receiving psychological treatment. He was discharged from the hospital in 2012.
That's hilarious. Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, the government fixed the problem. There was no anarchy.
That's hilarious.
Project Mayhem was taken care of.
I mean, it makes sense for China. It makes a lot of sense for them to do
yeah.
that. It does originally line up a little bit more with the book. The ending of the book, like the buildings still explode, but he has like an intervention from like all the people that were like at the self-help groups. They all show up to save him, and he ends up in a mental institution.
He does, right?
Yeah, but he's like so messed up that he thinks like all the people that are helping him are like angels and stuff, and he's still in heaven and everything like that.
That's right. You see, I read the book way too young, so I didn't grasp enough of it. I just saw the movie for the first time, and I was like, that's crazy. Yeah, I forgot all about that ending. Holy shit.
But yeah, that like I said, that makes sense for China. You know, it's very controlled with what they do, and last thing they want to do is show people anarchists to the state. You know what I mean?
Well, have you seen their fucking? I talk about this almost every episode, I swear, but I'm never gonna stop. Have you seen their fucking TikTok algorithms? Have you heard about that? Oh my god!
No.
So there's it borderlines conspiracy, but I think it holds a lot of weight. So the conspiracy theory is that TikTok was made as a part of the plan to destabilize America. And because we know like where TikTok comes from, we know that it's made in China and it has completely Chinese engineers behind it. But their algorithm is completely based around like showing science experiments, math equations, athletic achievements for the Republic of China, like all these like really good like character building things, right? It's to really educate their youth as much as possible. Like that's why they stopped doing the internet for anyone under, I don't know if 18 is their adult age over there, but anyone who's a kid over there, They don't get gaming
Yeah,
on the
I
internet
remember
during
that.
the weekends.
Yeah.
It's cut off at like 9 p.m. or some shit. But over here, our TikTok is a bunch of half-naked people dancing and memes and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of theories saying that that's like a way to like help like destabilize our society.
You know, it makes sense though, because TikTok, it's of two minds. There has been a lot of really good education on TikTok.
Yeah.
You get a lot of people who are putting out amazing educational videos, but at the same time you get people touting conspiracy theories or just complete misinformation. And because it's on TikTok and because it's somebody talking about it, like anything online, it could go viral. People believe it, you know what I mean? So you get the best of both worlds in between those videos of women twerking everywhere or kids doing stupid things, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because of how that algorithm is built, it's the easiest platform to go viral on. And I see the benefit of like I go back and forth. That is probably my most like installed, deleted, and reinstalled app on my phone. And because I go back and forth on it, it's like I have a lot of great stuff on there that I like enjoying, like whether it's like weightlifting, bodybuilding, and like people that I kind of like listening to, like whether it's the Jocko Willinks, the Rogans, people like them. And it's like cool shit about like space. But then I do randomly get stuff that I don't really like. I was like, that's not why I came to fucking TikTok.
Yeah.
And it's so good because like obviously stuff like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, their algorithms are built to keep you on the app. So it's calculating like what are you looking at? What are you spending time on? Like it's interesting. I didn't even know this thing, but when I upload clips onto my Facebook for the podcast, it shows like full playthroughs, like how many I've had of this is like a 5-minute clip, right? But then it shows how many 30-second playthroughs I have and then how many 3-second playthroughs I have.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so like every time you scroll through your Facebook and a video just starts playing, you have now clocked in as a statistic for like that amount. If you stay for 30 seconds, it'll click you in and so on and so forth. So I think that's pretty crazy, but TikTok takes it a step forward. So let's say you're watching a video, it's building an algorithm of 10 entries based on that. And it'll keep multiplying and it'll keep curating based on how much time. And if you obviously complete the video, you get a lot more like it. But if let's say you swipe up a little bit and you can see the video underwards, under it, it starts building an algorithm based on that. But if you don't choose to go and you stay on your video, it starts deleting anything like that's under it so that it doesn't go to that.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy.
And then like the same way. So if you want to go back up to a video, it'll start curating based on that. It's fucking wild to look at.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I don't have TikTok. I won't do it. I won't download it. I feel I'm aged just out of it just enough. I catch most of the TikToks and Reels on Instagram anyways.
Same.
And even Instagram is still frustrating because supposedly for having an algorithm, it still doesn't show me half the things I follow or want to see in general. It's like I'm liking these pictures, I'm liking these videos, but you still want to show me this other crap. Like I got into the habit lately when I'm going through my stories and it gives me like an ad. It's like, why the heck am I seeing this ad? And I actually click and hide it. And it asks me why. And I'm like, it's irrelevant. So it starts kicking them. Then it starts showing me like all these ones for like slot machine video games and stuff. And I'm like, what the heck? So I click on those and it just shows them more to me. Yep. And I'm like, but I'm telling you, I don't want these ads. And you're still so I don't know. The algorithm. Yeah. I don't get it. And it's frustrating.
And then it'll read your search histories and it'll read everything you look into. And it's also like the phones are listening to us too.
Oh yeah, constantly.
Which is super shitty. So like literally, I'll never forget it. It was during the pandemic. I was at my buddy's apartment. There were 3 of us, and we were like, well, everything's closed. What the fuck are we gonna do for dinner tonight? And of course, the essential stuff was open, like Domino's and Pizza Hut. Thank God McDonald's was open during the pandemic. That's what we all needed,
right?
And I remember we were playing Xbox, and my buddy was like, "What do you think about Domino's?" And we're like, "Oh, maybe." About 5 minutes later, my buddy Joey, he opens his phone, he scrolls through Facebook, and there's a Domino's ad. He doesn't have the Domino's app. He does not search Domino's.
Oh, no. It shows up.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you said the Xbox, because that was the big problem whenever the new Xbox came out, was because it was supposed to be always on and always listening.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you could be sitting in that situation like that where you're talking to your lady or something in the living room, like, oh, what do you want to do for dinner tonight? You know, and the TV pops up and the Xbox like, hey, you know, you mentioned pizza. Here's you know what I mean? So it's funny that you mentioned Xbox because it is. And that's what I tell everybody. Acts like it's all nefarious, you know, like, oh, they want to do it. Facebook's here just to control. No, it's like they want to keep you angry to keep coming back. But honestly, what everything boils down to is advertising.
Mm-hmm. It's all money.
How can we advertise to you?
Yep,
What can we do to
money.
advertise? We want to learn your habits so we can advertise better to you.
Yeah.
And that's what everything comes down to. And people don't realize that. They're just like, oh, it's like, no, they just want to sell you things.
Right.
It's consumerism. They want to sell you everything.
Exactly. Could there be evil things the government gets from Facebook or Amazon? Sure. And we'll definitely cross that bridge if it comes.
Oh, yeah.
But 10 times out of 10, it is they want to figure out how to get your money quicker. And I gotta say though, God, I haven't thought about this in a while. That Xbox One launch was so bad because I've always been an Xbox fan, and now I game more on my PC. But when I was growing up, it was always Xbox, and all my friends were PlayStation, all of them except for one. God bless them. But I remember the Xbox One was getting announced, and they're like doing all the features, and it's like, you can't borrow games from each other, and it's always on and always listening, and you have to have the Kinect. And then the big one was you have to always have an internet connection to use your Xbox. It's like, who the fuck came up with that? Like,
seriously. It goes back to sell you more. Because that's what it comes down to. You need to buy new games. You need to buy these accessories. I hate it. I can take my gaming knowledge all the way back to the Atari. I've literally been here for the evolution of video games all the way. Whether if it wasn't a Nintendo, it was I was always Sony, so I always had like a PlayStation. Mm-hmm. I would try out different things. I had like a Dreamcast and stuff like that. Shit. You know what I mean? But I always tried, and that was one of my most frustrating things that I see with games nowadays. It's like, you mean that I can't just buy the game and go? I need to download it to my system. It needs to update from my system. I got to drop $70 on a video game, and I can't just play it whenever I want. Said I need to constantly patch it. I need to constantly buy things for it. It needs to constantly update for things. It's like, that's so like, what happened to those days where you could just buy a cartridge and you could just play through?
Well, I do see the reason for needing to download it because there's so much content now that it can't fit on a disc. So I understand that, but I agree where it's like the most egregious offense was Cyberpunk.
Oh my god.
Oh my word. I didn't even buy it, but I had a couple friends that did, and I saw the frenzy on Reddit and on YouTube where people were like, yeah, this is unplayable. And then it's become a habit now, especially outside of that. It's become a habit for these people to pump out games by the release date and then do patches. Whereas, like, honestly, I think the only trustworthy game developers nowadays is id Software, the dudes who are putting out Doom, and then
Santa Monica.
What's up?
Santa Monica.
What do they
like
put?
God of War and stuff like that?
Them, and then From Software. Those are really the only people we can trust anymore. And even then, have you played Elden Ring?
No, I was gonna get it, but I was like, I don't have the time for this yet.
Oh my God.
Like,
yeah, that game. Like, have you played like the Dark Souls, the Bloodborns, any of those?
No, I always wanted to play it. The open world like is appealing to me. I've just never jumped in because I don't know where to start, and I don't have 100 extra hours just to lose myself in a game. You know what I mean?
You know, I will say, save for Elden Ring, the Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and Sekiro, they're not really like they are linear games. You just have to figure it out yourself. They don't really like waypoints or like like an arrow at the top of the screen to show you where to go. So that's really nice about those. But yeah, Elden Ring is overwhelming at first. I gotta say, it is fucking overwhelming. And it got to the point because their whole thing was like it's very challenging, but it's balanced. The last 5 hours of that game is not balanced, man. Oh my God. Like, because you can like summon people in to help you beat the bosses, and I had no shame doing that all the way to the end. Like, I need 3 people to get in here and help me fuck
get in
this
here and
guy.
help it. Yeah.
Oh, but I highly recommend it.
I'm sure once it goes on, I'll catch a really good sale, whether it's later on in the year or something. And it'll be like $20 or $30, and it'll be like with all like the downloadable content or something. I'm like, yeah, there it is. It's finally for me. That's normally how I get most of my games.
And that's how I feel about Lego Star Wars. I want to buy that so bad and play it, the new one, the Skywalker Saga.
Oh yeah.
But I'm going to wait for a Christmas sale. because it just looks beautiful.
It does. The Lego games are fun. They're enjoyable just to play. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you need those kind of games just to lose yourself in.
Yeah, you're not stressed out 100% of the time.
Oh, yeah. And it's funny. It goes back to what you're thinking, because I was just thinking about that, but it goes back to what you're saying about pumping them out. And it's once you get something popular, and it shows in video games and it shows in movies. There's plenty of movies that had like diminishing returns. Look at the difference between X2 and X3. And it was because we have a hot movie. You got to have this completed in the next year. The Nightmare on Elm Street movies, they're like that. They're just like, this is popular. We already have a release date for the next year before we even started production on this movie. Video games are the same way. It's like, this game is hot. We want it done by this time next year. And they're like, well, we can't. That's why you get so many patches, because you're too busy trying to meet that deadline.
Yeah.
As opposed to putting out a quality product.
No, I totally fucking agree.
And it sucks. And it's that profit-based mindset as opposed to quality. It's like, we made money on this. We're going to make this much money off of this. So let's put it out. Let's put it out now. We need to put it out. Why haven't we put it out yesterday?
Well, I mean, look at Disney, what they did with Star Wars. Their plan after Force Awakens was, hey, we're gonna do a new Star Wars thing every year, or a new Star Wars movie every year, or a TV show every year, and they're gonna be great, we promise. And
the fact that they didn't have, how do you go into a new trilogy and you don't have a plan?
And they admitted that, right?
Yeah,
they admitted that.
Kathleen Kennedy came out and said we didn't have a plan for it. And it sucks because this is gonna get a lot of heat because I know people say it. I enjoyed Last Jedi. I liked what Rian Johnson brought to the trilogy. It wasn't a rehash. I love Force Awakens. It gave me all those nostalgia feels. Took me back to when I was a kid and I saw Return of the Jedi with my dad. Like it gave me all those feels. But The Last Jedi was something different. It had some corny spots. It had that casino scene in the middle.
The whole sequence was bad.
It's like, what are you even doing? You know, and it had its bad spots. But it was a solid movie. But he capped it in a way that they couldn't go on for a third movie unless they went, like, did you ever read the leaked script of what was supposed to be episode 3?
No.
It's really good.
Wait, episode 3 or like the third in the sequel?
Well, the third in the sequel.
Okay.
And it had hope. They had like this whole narrative that was going to go. Palpatine wasn't in it at all. It was a way to build off The Last Jedi and like continue on with the story and everything. But Disney got so shook by the fan backlash for that second movie that they brought back freaking what's his name, and it was just like, well, let's just do Return of the Jedi over again, and we're gonna do all this stuff, and it's like, you guys just shot yourself in your own dick. Like, what are you doing? And it sucks. And now here we are. We have to wait for The Mandalorian to get good Star Wars content. You know what I mean? Because even I'm gonna say, as much as I love Boba Fett, the Book of Boba it wasn't until Mando showed up again that we were like, yeah, this is good.
And we didn't even get that far. We watched the first episode and we were like, wow, that wasn't bad. It was boring. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the biggest crimes IPs like Marvel, DC, Star Wars can, that's one of the biggest crimes they can make is it's boring. At least like you can go all the way back to like the old school like Fantastic Four, the PG-13 Daredevil. They're not good movies, but they're fun to look at.
They're enjoyable at least in some level. They're enjoyable,
but they're not boring. That's the biggest crime that Fantastic Four from Trank came out. It was just boring to look at. So then I remember we watched the first episode for Boba Fett. It's like, man, that was boring. And the title cards came up and it said directed by Robert Rodriguez. It's like, how? How did the dude that made Planet Terror, how did he make this?
Especially because he directed some of those episodes of
Mandalorian.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But like I said, once Mando shows up in the Book of Boba, it gets interesting again. It was like a teaser for the next season of Mando, you know what I mean? And that's where it got good. But like other than that, it's like, but they came out with that Star Wars Visions one. I don't know if you saw it. It's
Never
just like
saw it.
It's kind of like
right?
Yeah. It's an anthology, had different anime and stuff like that. There was a couple episodes that were really good. I'm really looking forward to Obi-Wan in a couple weeks.
Oh yeah,
it looks amazing. I like that they've said it's going to be 8 episodes, nothing else,
That's
nothing
the way
more.
It should
it's
be.
going to be locked in. Yeah, so it gives me hope. But like I love the fact that we got TV series. I'm glad that I could say, you know what, we got this to watch. For years I've been like, why can't we just have a Star Wars show? Mm-hmm. And and it's not focused on the Skywalker saga. I mean, Obi-Wan obviously because it kind of links around to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
it's Star Wars in the world. It was one of the things I used to love about the Dark Horse comics. You know, you're expanding on that world. It's not just Luke and Leia. We're learning about the Republic, the old Republic,
Right.
way in the future. Luke's grandkids. You know what I mean? And to get that expansive world building, but they're like, no, we need to learn more about the Skywalkers. We need to see more about everything's tied in. Yeah. And it's frustrating. As a fan, you want to see more, you know?
See, in Star Wars, like, 'cause I see how obsessed I've gotten with Marvel and DC. And my only real knowledge of the expanded Star Wars universe is like a few of the video games. And I see the hot toys, and I see the statues, and I see the comics. Like, I finally bought Star Wars Darth Vader Omni, and I forget who wrote it. It was Charles Soule, his run on it. That was fantastic. It's like the origin of the Inquisitors. And
that was the Darth Vader one, right?
Yeah. And I remember reading that. I finished it in maybe 2 days. And I was like, fuck, this is why it's so addicting. Holy shit. This is so much better than half the shit they're pumping out.
And you know, I'm not the biggest fan when it comes to Charles Soule, but his Darth Vader book, it was good. Mm-hmm. It was solid. There's some stuff that he does that's really good, and other stuff that he does that I'm just like, oh, all right, dude. I get it. You know, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Maybe it's just my age, but I grew up at a perfect time for all this stuff. I grew up at that one, like I said earlier, one of my first movie-going experiences was my dad taking me to go see Return of the Jedi. And it was at the old freaking Montgomery movie theater where the Burlington is now over there off of Montgomery and San Mateo.
I remember hearing about that theater.
Yeah, it was like so long ago. But that was like my earliest memory. I knew of Star Wars. I can't even tell. I had bed sheets and stuff before this movie came out, and I can't even remember how I saw them. You know? But I had the Hulk on TV. I had Wonder Woman on TV. I had Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. I had comics, cartoons, the burgeoning video game market. You know what I mean? I was at the perfect time to see all this stuff come out and evolve and lose myself in that geeky and nerdiness culture of it. I'm sitting there watching Saturday morning cartoons. I'm playing with my G.I. Joes and Transformers. I'm reading my comic books. You know, I'm getting slowly addicted to all this stuff, and it turns into a lifelong passion. Even video games, as much as I wish I played more, I still own a PS5, you know what I mean? I still want to play when I get a chance. My shelves are full of books and comic books and stuff like that. I'll still watch cartoons. I still watch all the Marvel movies, you know, like this. It hit me just right. And Star Wars was the same way. My earliest memory. So whenever they started doing the re-releases in the early 90s, I was at the movie theater there to see them. Dark Horse started putting out the comics right around the same time. George Lucas allowed it. And we started getting all that cool Dark Horse stories, you know, Empire's End and stuff like that. The novel started coming out. And it's just like building off this world. And that's one of the things I loved about comic books is that expansion of everything that you can learn. There's all these years of story that you can go back and discover and learn. And I love that. I love that, you know? And it gets me excited. So when I see them doing like these TV shows and stuff, and you hope it's going to be good and you want to see it, and then you get like a lackluster product and you're just like, oh, you know, you let down. I don't feel like my childhood got raped or anything like that. Like some people like to use.
Yeah.
You know, it's nothing like that, but there's still disappointment because you wanted better. You expected better. You know, you've been a fan for so long. You don't need to cater to me. Obviously, you're a big corporation that's going to make your money. You don't need to cater to me, but at least make me happy. You know what I mean? On some level, make me feel like I'm giving you my money for a reason. Nothing worse than going to see a 2-hour movie and walking away. Or even some of these shows, like Moon Knight. I just spent 6 hours of my life watching Moon Knight to walk away from it and go, it was okay.
You know what? Oh my god. Okay, so there's a lot I want to get in there because you are preaching to the choir. I completely fucking agree. But with Moon Knight, you know, I loved the first episode. Second was good. 3 and 4 were meh to cool. You know, it was nice. Like, because Oscar Isaac broke his back carrying that movie or carrying the show. But episode 5 should have been the end.
Oh yeah,
that should have been I didn't like because, oh god, I was locked in the entire time. And the fact that, I mean, spoilers for Moon Knight, but the fact that the Stephen Grant, who we eventually find out, but then readers know that he's not real. He's the alternate persona. He ends up dying, and having Mark stay dead but make it to the afterlife. He's made balance with his life. He's at peace. That's a pretty good ending. It's you don't connect it to the MCU. You don't connect to this bigger thing. It's the tragic tale of the Moon Knight. He lived. He existed. He's dead. Oh well. That was the point of the show. And they could have, if they would have just centered it around that and not worried about like Arthur Harrow or his love interest eventually becoming Scarab. Don't worry about all that. Just tell the character study of a severely alone and mentally ill guy who may or may not have been a superhero. He just horrible life.
Well, it makes me wonder because it was originally supposed to just be this one season, and then it got to the end and it got continued for a second season. So
yeah,
originally they had planned for it just to be close ended. So it makes you wonder, like, what did you guys have expected? What did you have planned? You know what I mean? But like you said, Oscar Isaac, he's the whole reason to watch the show. He even just acting off of himself, he was perfect. Just like
watching him do like because the camera would stay on. I was expecting camera shift every time for the characters. It stayed on him, and he just do a little, and it's a different character. It's
like, he was
what the fuck?
He was amazing. He was amazing. He made watching the whole show worth it.
Oh, 100%. Like completely. Yeah, I don't know. Going back to Star Wars, like, because this is the philosophy that I have specifically with DC, because I want them to fucking bring Zack Snyder back and finish his thing. But like comic books themselves, they are popular and they make a ton of money and they tell great stories sometimes. But they're able to do all of that because it's based off of bi-monthly or monthly storytelling. It's not an entire story jam-packed into 2 to 2.5 hours. So I look at something like Star Wars that has such a huge universe. Like, I'm so big I can't wrap my head around it. And that's why I don't even touch Star Trek. I don't even want to know about Star Trek. I don't care yet. Wait till I'm like a little older because I don't have time for Star Trek. But I look at how big Star Wars is, and I just think I know they'll never do this because movies are so accessible. They're so big. It's such an event. I mean, I love going to the movies. But I would almost like argue stop making the movies and put so much money into shows so you can have these 6, 8, 10 hour long epics that these characters deserve.
Yeah, you may not have the money, you may not have the budget for it, but I mean, Mando proved it. You can do so much on a limited budget. Mm-hmm. Even some of the Marvel shows. I mean, I think Scarlet Witch is like one of my favorites of this new Disney batch of shows as it is, and they did so much on the budget they were working on. Yeah. It goes, it's like you were saying with DC, that they have that serialized form to build off of. The movies should be their own thing. I'm one of the biggest proponents that I look at the movie and I go, oh, look at you have this entire history of stories to build off of. You should be able to do it. Like, just pick a good story and turn it into a movie. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's funny because I was thinking about this morning, and it's like, no, make it your own thing. DC trying to look at it and go, we're going to do Superman. Oh, here's Superman versus Batman. Oh, here's the death of Superman. Oh, look, here's the Justice League movie. Oh, look, here's Flashpoint. Instead of being smart about it and doing it like the Marvel way and taking your time and building it up. But even Marvel does it, if you're looking at it now, because they're talking about Secret Invasion. I hear people talking about House of M. I think
they're doing Secret Wars, right? Because they brought up incursions.
Yeah, they brought up the incursions. Like, how many other Jonathan Hickman things are they going to start bringing in? You know what I mean? It's like there is this wealth. It's like, I asked for this. Like, you have the comic stories, but now they're like, well, what were our hits? Look, we did Civil War. Look, we did this, you know what I mean? And so where DC's like, we want to rush to this endpoint, we're going to do Flashpoint next. And it's like already bringing in the multiverse, and you haven't even like, there's no history or earning anything behind it. And Marvel's just like, what's our greatest hits? How can we hit that off of the movies? You know what I mean? And it gets frustrating. It's like you set up this entire world that you could just branch off and do
anything.
Yeah. And so DC, take your time. You don't got to rush to the endpoint. Yeah. Marvel, like, just keep building off this world. I feel like they're just, it's starting to feel like that, especially because of this new phase. They don't have, it feels less cohesive. They feel like they have 20 pots steaming all at once, and you don't know which pot is demanding attention or even what the final dish is that all the pots are bubbling for. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
it's like,
and I agree. Like, with Marvel, with so many open branches that they can build off of, I mean, and I was having this conversation like a week ago. Like, I like what they're doing, but just because maybe just my personal preference, maybe I got so used to the Infinity Saga, the way they storied that, it was just, what are we building towards? Like, what are we doing here? If we just want to tell cool stories, okay, I'm fine with that, but at least come out and say that. Because they're so... They make such a habit of having these big events where it's like, oh, we're doing blank, blank, blank up until at this point, like 2027, we're doing all of this. And then, but we're just telling cool stories, no big bad yet. I'd be fine with that because I know they're going to make, at a bare minimum, entertaining content. And I think the biggest contrast between DC and Marvel right now is, you look at Marvel, yes, they're a business, they're a conglomerate, they want to make money, but at the head of it, they have Kevin Feige, who's a nerd. Mm-hmm. He might not make perfect decisions all the time, certainly doesn't, but he loves the characters. And you can tell that at the end of the day, there is love for the characters somewhere. Like, personally, up until No Way Home, I fucking hated Spider-Man in the MCU. I thought they did him so dirty. But there's still, like, I can watch Homecoming or Far From Home and see little splotches of, like, okay, somebody cared enough to do that, though.
Why do you feel that way, out of curiosity? Because I really like Tom Holland as Spider-Man, and I think they captured him. I think he brought a really good youthful energy to Peter Parker.
I agree with that. And I think up until Far From Home, or No Way Home, his best appearance was Civil War.
His introduction.
Yeah, his introduction, I think, was his best outing as Spider-Man. Just because I love Tom Holland as the character. He looks like Peter Parker. He looks like my favorite Peter Parker is Ultimate Spider-Man. And it's weird, like, because the Ultimate comics like have that weird disdain on them, that weird thing. It's like, oh, some things were so cool, but then you look like Ultimate X-Men, and it's like, oh, that was not that cool. Even though Bendis wrote X-Men, right? No, he just did Fantastic.
No, you know what? It's Mark Miller started X-Men.
Miller wrote X-Men, but then it was Bendis doing Fantastic Four and Spider-Man. Okay.
Yes.
Anyway, so my problem with Spider-Man in the MCU is that they replaced Uncle Ben with Tony. And I don't like the way they executed it, and I don't like the fact that... And it's weird because I look at it a lot lighter now as I did like maybe before No Way Home. Like before No Way Home, I was like, okay, no, like there's no Uncle Ben. Peter doesn't have any real consequences to what he's doing up until the Edith incident happens. That was the glasses, right?
Yes.
Even in death, I'm the hero? Yeah. So there are no real consequences up until Edith with Mysterio. And it just didn't feel like, oh God, how do I put this? Like, okay, so Homecoming, he ditches his friend Ned at the party. They were cool and they're friends the next day. He's able, like, the only real consequence of of Homecoming was that he had to go, he lost the suit to Tony. And he had to learn to be Spider-Man. And that moment where he's lifting the broken cement.
That classic moment, yeah.
That was great. Like I'm saying, like there's spots like that. Or like where he's sitting on the balcony with the mask halfway up eating a hot dog. That's great. Like these are great quintessential like snapshots from the comics. But with now that we have No Way Home, I can look back on what they've done with Spider-Man like, oh, Homecoming or Civil War wasn't the origin.
They messed with us. That
entire thing was an origin. But like my thing though is like I look at Spider-Man No Way Home, I'm like, there's so much. I think they just let the reins off of John Watts because the one problem I have with Marvel is almost every movie looks the same.
Oh,
with the exception of like the Russo brothers and then like Waititi's Ragnarok. Not a fan of the movie, but like at least it's different. And then James Gunn's Guardians movies. Outside of those, every Marvel movie looks the same. And with John Watts doing No Way Home, it's like they said, do what you want. I mean, play within the lines, but do what you want because there's so many different camera angles and like ways things are shot. Like the scene where they're in the condo complex, and the spider sense is going off, and the camera's like right here, and it's following Tom Holland. Great.
Oh yeah,
fantastic. And so, but there's a lot of patchwork in that movie where they're like, oh well, he didn't really have his Uncle Ben moment. So we're not only going to give the Uncle Ben moment to Aunt May and make that impactful, we're going to turn right around and give him a second Uncle Ben moment with Tobey Maguire, which is something I needed. I needed Tobey Maguire to give him the great responsibility line, which was fantastic.
And they completely messed with us on that too because they introduced him. They never once mentioned Uncle Ben. And because we came into it with Peter already being Spider-Man, we assumed, oh, they're not even going to give us the origin. They're not going to show us the Uncle Ben moment because we've already seen it so many times.
Right.
And here we are. It's like you said, oh, shoot. All of it gets to, here we are. He's learning. You end No Way Home with Peter finally becoming Spider-Man.
Yes,
like
he's
really
Spider-Man.
becoming Spider-Man. Yeah.
But again, I can't. It's hard because they've had such a great track record with their movies. So maybe like, oh, that was the plan all along. Oh, Feige. But then on the other hand, I might want to look at that and be like, maybe you guys saw the fan backlash because like you look at it and it's like what Spider-Man 3 came out in 2007 or 2008, and then Amazing Spider-Man came out in 2012, 2011. And then that ran, TASM 2 was 14, and then Civil War was 16. So you're having all these different jumps where it's like, okay, we've been through the Uncle Ben, we've been through the death, we've been through the wrestler suit and all that. We don't need that anymore. So maybe that's why they went away from it. But like, it's so quintessential to the characters. Like when people complain that Batman movies keep killing the Waynes.
Well, that's what I was just going to say too.
Well, my whole thing is like, I need acknowledgement that the Waynes are dead in a Batman movie. Like, you need that. And if the argument becomes legitimate, in my opinion, that we've seen the Waynes die too much, okay, we have too many Batman movies. Move on. Make other DC properties. I love Batman, but I also love Green Lantern. Where's my fucking Green Lantern movie? We have a Peacemaker TV show, but no Green Lantern movie? Mm-hmm. Like, what is going on?
Warner and DC cannot get their heads out of their ass.
Oh yes, to finish my point. So you have Marvel that has Feige, who clearly loves the characters. Doesn't do everything perfect, but he loves the characters.
And it shows. And he's also somebody that could sit there and talk to Ike Perlman, whatever the hell his name is. Head of Marvel, and be like, no, this is what we're doing. We have the money to back it up, you know?
But then you have Warner Brothers, where they are only suits. Mm-hmm. They're businessmen. It's the Walter Hamadas, the Tony Emmerichs, and I gotta say, the fall from grace for Jeff Johns.
Well, that's what I was just gonna say. They tried to bring him on. How long did he last? You know what I mean? It
fucking hurts. But then to see the racial allegations against Ray Fisher, it breaks my heart.
See, now I didn't hear about that until you mentioned it on a couple episodes ago that I heard that I was listening. I had heard about the Ray Fisher stuff with Joss Whedon, but I didn't hear about them with Jeff Johns.
I remember because I've been following Zack Snyder since Dawn of the Dead. I saw that movie right when it came out, and I was like, whoa, you can make movies like this? And the 300 was great. Watchmen, although the ending isn't great, I still love the adaptation of Watchmen. And so I've been following his movies. So I saw BVS in the theaters fucking 11 times.
Holy crap.
Love that movie.
Really?
Oh, BVS. But see, it's so funny because I loved it so much because... And I mean, we can do this with Marvel movies, right? Where you sit there and like, oh, well, they didn't explain this that well, but it's because of X, Y, and Z. I know that. Okay, cool. You know, you can watch the movie. But then I remember watching the Ultimate version, the rated R version, with the extra 40 minutes, and I'm like, oh, the PG-13 is stupid. That's so much better. That's so much better. But anyway, so the point is, I followed the production of BVS and Justice League like as much as I could. 'Cause I wanted to know everything that's going on with this fucking movie. Like, we're finally getting what I want, right? And so after the unfortunate things happened in Snyder's family, he had to step away. I remember reading an article where it said that Warner Brothers offered Snyder to push back Justice League so he could finish it, but he denied it. Therefore, they bring in Joss Whedon. Snyder agreed, and Whedon said, I will finish Snyder's fucking vision. Now, we know all that's bullshit. The studio was lying out of their ass. Mm-hmm. And so after Justice League came out in November of 2017, Ray Fisher started his campaign, I think like the first quarter of 2018, second quarter of 2018, around there. And in the initial reports that were coming out, he named Jeff Johns, Tony Emmerich, Walter Hamada, and Joss Whedon for racial allegations against him, and then sexism against Gal.
Oh wow!
And from what I could gather was, as the reporting continued and as the statement, like there were no statements from Warner Bros. For the longest time, but as this continued, Ray Fisher never let up, I honestly think the studio was like, well, Jeff Johns kind of fucked up, or not Jeff Johns, Joss Whedon kind of fucked up that Justice League movie, Sacrificial Lamb. Mm-hmm. But like, no, Jeff Johns was like 100% in those conversations, backing the decisions and like treating Ray Fisher very poorly. That camera just shut off. Give me 2 seconds.
Okay.
I'd like to see why. Let's see why that camera just shut off.
Go for it. Let me grab my water.
Oh.
Because it's unplugged?
It shut off because I'm not smart. See, normally I have my buddy here with me. He helps produce it, but the recording didn't turn off. Thank God. He helps me like moderate and produce. And shout out to Joey. And he's my dude. He's the Jamie to my Rogan. And that's still going. We're plugged in. All right, we're cool. But he works in the fire department, so he was on shift tonight, doing his thing. Anyway, so yeah, I think they just used Joss Whedon as the sacrificial lamb to say like he was the problem. If there's any legal issues that come up, we're gonna blame him.
Well, it's hard to say because Joss Whedon, I mean, not just like the Gal Gadot thing, but I mean,
Buffy
it's come out
Vampire.
over years. Yeah, so this has been a continuing thing with him for. Sorry,
Yeah, you're good.
I bumped it when I grabbed my
No,
water.
you're good.
This has been continuing with him for years, so it's easy to go, okay, well, you are the problem because you obviously had problems. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things about Ray Fisher. Like whenever he's coming out and being like, no, I'm not crazy. It's not just me. There's other people on set that can do it. And it's like, oh, if you look in history, there's other people that come out and say this dude's kind of a shit to all of us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's really like, and what's interesting to me is like maybe they just didn't care enough, or maybe it wasn't as egregious. But like I think about especially how hailed Joss Whedon was after the first Avengers. He was like the king of the nerds. He dethroned Kevin Smith for a bit.
Well, he was up there even before, just thanks to Buffy and stuff. He was already at that level. But watch Age of Ultron again. And there's a reason there's the way it is. You know what I mean? You start to...
The over-sexualization of Black Widow. I agree.
You start to see it. Like, it's just... Yeah, but I didn't know that Jeff Johns was, like, included in all that stuff, too.
And see, like, I remember reading that, and because I love his work. I mean, I've been reading Jeff Johns since Superman, Man of Tomorrow, when he worked with Richard Donner. And... I mean, just Jeff Johns' work through the Green Lantern stuff, the Flash stuff, going to New 52 with the Justice League. Like, I love his work. For the Doomsday Clock was not good, but
I have a love-hate relationship with the guy too. But go ahead, I'll go on.
I remember reading that and just being like, "Fuck, man! Like, you're such a great writer, and turns out you're a piece of shit too." But anyway, I just think that to end my point, Warner Brothers is filled with suits, and they are operating as suits. They know that Batman and Superman sell. They're going to hark on that as long as they can. And like, as much as I love the fact that Matt Reeves clearly got to make his own movie, where was that for Zack Snyder? Because now we can all truly look in hindsight and be like, you had a 4-hour kick-ass Justice League. I've not met one person that didn't like the Snyder Cut.
I enjoyed it a heck lot more than the first Justice. I would watch the 4-hour one before I watched the regular Justice League one again any day.
There was a period of time, I think I kind of fell off watching it as much, maybe like 2 months ago, but I would have the regular Snyder Cut and then the black and white Snyder Cut on my HBO Max continually playing, and just keep playing every now and again when I was bored. I just keep watching it. Oh, the color's done? Black and white. And just like, I love it so fucking much.
It still blows my mind that you saw BVS 11 times. It blows my mind, you know. I saw it in the theater. I went to go watch it in the theater the first time. I've watched it a few times since then, just trying to see if I could change my opinion. But I remember after the movie was over, I looked at my ex and I was like, I'm really, really sorry that you had to come to this with me.
Oh,
like,
no.
I was so excited for it. I was so pumped, and oh, it let me down so bad.
So it's funny you had that reaction because I remember I saw it with my ex, funny thing, and the movie ended, Tyler credits came up, and I couldn't control myself. I was like, what was so bad about this? And I like started clapping. I was like, yeah. And I remember we went home. I couldn't shut the fuck up about that movie. Next day she goes to work, and I remember her being, she was fucking pissed because she was like, "You're gonna come see me for my break?" And I was like, maybe. There's a 9 o'clock showing at BVS, and I'm probably gonna go see that movie again. So of course I was a dumb little 18-year-old at the time. I didn't, know relationships well. No, I was 17 at the time. 17, 18 maybe? No, I was 19 because it was going to that. And got my little Coke, got my popcorn, plopped down, happy as a clam, and I saw BVS again. That movie blew my fucking mind.
So now I'm curious, because you said something earlier, and we kind of just passed over it. You do not like Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Why is that? I put it in top... I think it's like top 5 Marvel movies for me, so I'm curious.
So I'm not too well versed on Thor. Like personally, next week I'll pick up the Aaron Omnibus because I really want to read that. Cause I've heard nothing.
His run is amazing.
I've heard nothing but amazing things, and now with Love and Thunder, I really want to, because that's obviously pulling from that run, from what I've heard. But the reason why I didn't really like Ragnarok, maybe I just need to watch it again. Maybe just at the time of my life where I was, but I was not tired of it, but I didn't want the overly happy and joyful superhero movies. I wanted something serious, and there's absolutely nothing serious in that movie. It's funny, it's very well written, and it's cool to look at times. What I will give it credit for is the Hulk versus Thor sequence, and then having Thor pull down the thing and the fucking the wings come up, and having Hulk and the gladiator stuff, and almost adapting Planet Hulk. That was pretty neat. But yeah, I don't know. It just didn't do it for me. But then it's weird because Taika Waititi killed it on Jojo Rabbit.
Oh, I'm a huge fan of his work. So everything he's done, whether it was What We Do in the Shadows or even going back to Flight of the Conchords, you know what I mean? I've been a huge fan of his work and stuff.
Wow,
so to see
Flight of the Conchords, I haven't seen that in years.
Yeah, so I'm so if he does it, and chances are I'm gonna love it no matter what. You know what I mean? Just off of him alone, but. I don't know. There was so much Kirby stuff that was in that movie. It had that sci-fi Kirby element going on to it.
I agree with that.
I really, really wish the trailer didn't spoil the Hulk thing.
I agree.
Because that would have been so dope just to go in not knowing crap and to see that moment and be like, yes, but they used that. That was a heavy part in the trailer. It's spoil me a little bit. Spoil me.
Well, it's why do you need to sell a Thor movie on Hulk? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was a weird choice.
But I mean, and there's something like you were saying about the darker movies, which Doctor Strange, it finally went down that damn. Giving Sam Raimi the reins and going, we're doing Doctor Strange, a horror movie. You have to go. Which they even talked to the original director, because when he was originally planned to direct the sequel, he was even saying we're doing a horror movie. Right. So it wasn't like Marvel changing tracks. This was what it was always supposed to be. But it's that dark. But all the Marvel movies, once they figure out that quippy is the way to go, every movie has quips in it. Every movie's oh, this movie needs to be lighthearted and it needs to be fun, and it gets a little calm down a little bit. Let us just enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Well, and what doesn't make sense to me is how much money the Russos made. And every movie they make is extremely serious except for Endgame, because that's just a roller coaster. Oh yeah. Endgame is just a theme park of, do you remember this? Remember that? Isn't that neat?
I like Infinity War more than Endgame.
Oh, same.
Easily. Endgame has moments that just make that ending battle scene, on your left and everything like that. That makes the whole movie.
Yes.
But I rewatched them about a week and a half ago, just because I had nothing on and I'm just throwing it on in the background. And I'll usually watch them back to back. And yeah, I like Infinity War so much more than Endgame, because the whole time heist thing, I was going into the movie theater. I think even walking out of the movie theater, I was I wish they could have did something different than the time heist.
No, me too. Because one of my big questions after that was, so what? We have 2 Captain Americas running around now?
Yeah, and then the Loki thing, which we got the Loki show, but it still poses a whole lot of other problems. And it's and nobody's giving answers for everything. And oh, I guess we'll eventually get a second season, and maybe they'll explain that kind of stuff.
Well, what was funny about Loki was originally supposed to be just one season, but it was going to be 12 episodes. So that last 6 that we're getting, they didn't have time to write it or make it.
Was it COVID?
Yeah. Because of COVID. Which is crazy to me, because the ending of the first season was so good, with He Who Remains / Rama Tut getting killed.
Which they still set him up, and they said he's supposed to be the next Thanos, but we saw him the once in Loki, and we haven't had anything even linking back to him. Really?
Yeah, Kang. Like the version of him as Kang is
Yeah.
gonna be the villain of Ant-Man.
Okay, well, good.
Yeah.
Finally, because whenever they dropped him, I know they said that he was supposed to be like the next big bad of the next phase or something like that. But it's like you teased him once, and nothing else is hinted towards him. So
Well, I don't know what the next big bad's gonna be because they did say Kang is gonna be a threat, but it's like, okay, well, are we gonna do Secret Wars because the multiverse stuff is so popular right now? Or are we going to get into like Galactus because of the Fantastic Four is going to come out?
which out of spoilers for people who haven't seen this yet,
Yeah.
seeing Richards got a bigger cheer out of me personally than seeing like Xavier or any of the
yeah.
other. I saw Reed Richards and I was like,
Finally.
yes. I looked at my kid. I was like, yes, Mr. Fantastic.
Do you
know what
understand?
I mean? Like, that was dope. And then the Black Bolt scene, like that, like those two moments right there back to back were just like, I wasn't expecting that with Black Bolt. And that was like dope.
So I remember having this conversation with my buddies and my girl, and I'm like, they're doing the Illuminati. This is who the Illuminati is in the comic books. I doubt they're going to do Black Bolt. I doubt they're going to do Namor, but like, I don't know what the fuck they're going to put there. So to see not only Black Bolt, but to Marvel to have, or Feige, to have the balls to bring back the actor that played Black
In a
Bolt
different
in the
costume,
failed
yep.
TV show was great. And then his display of his powers was probably the best they could have done it.
Oh, absolutely.
It was fantastic.
Even when it works against him.
Yeah, oh my god, yeah. I will say though, that's my one problem. Like, they didn't give the Illuminati enough to do, but like Reed specifically was so weird to me because the first time he shows up, he's great. And he's the smartest man alive, Reed Richards, and he's explaining things, incursions and like what's going on, how strange is the problem. But then in the next scene, he's giving away his teammates' power.
I almost say that's the point of it. I almost say that was the point of it, like, because these aren't meant to be who we expect in the. Which, if we get John Kay as Reed Richards, I'm all for it. He was perfect.
He needs to be written better.
I think the purpose of it was just to be like, here's some people that we know you're gonna love. They're here to just be fodder, like the way they're going to be, and that's the most of it. So they're not gonna act like we're not getting the definitive Marvel version of them.
But just the Illuminati is so like important in the comics though, and they're so like high elite levels of these characters. It was just strange to see them be so ignorant.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It's like, yeah, Reed's a cocky guy. Yes, the Illuminati, they're full of hubris. That's the whole point of them saying, no, we're so much better than our counterparts that we need to be our own team, right? They're full of hubris inherently. But then to see them just, okay, so Black Bolt gets wiped and Reed gets turned to string cheese while Captain Marvel and Captain Carter just sit there and watch. Like, they're fucking NPCs. And it's like, oh, that's crazy. And then to have Captain Marvel, who is like alpha level powers, gets killed by a statue falling on her.
Yep. It sets up Wanda. And like I was telling you in text the other day, I hate that this movie kind of backtracked on Wanda and she's having to go through everything we've already experienced with her again. It's like, here was all your character growth. We're going to do it all over again.
They're going to do a highlight reel.
Yeah.
I agree. It was, well, obviously it's just for people who haven't seen WandaVision, but then also it's like, reward the people who spend the time.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, reward the people. Because, I mean, even if you don't, I mean, just from a common sense, like, I'm watching a movie perspective, it's like, oh, she misses her kids. Just tell me, okay, you told me she has kids. Okay, she has kids. She's sad. Okay, I can accept the movie now. You don't have to, I agree. You don't have to retread over everything. But I will say, the way they made her turn good in the end and accept the fact of what she's become was great.
Oh, yeah. They made her terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest problem that Marvel has...
Their villains were horrible.
Is always the villains. And Wanda was terrifying. I don't know if it was the way Raimi directed it or what. I mean, there was plenty of Evil Dead just crammed in there.
Yeah.
But like the scene where she's chasing them and she's just like dragging herself along is terrifying.
And then when she's like in that first part of the movie where she's crawling out of the hole or the fuck she was crawling out of, and it's like the ring.
Oh, but like her power levels are off the chart. Like she's supposed to. We were told that Captain Marvel is the most powerful of the Marvel heroes that we've gotten so far, but they've proven that Wanda
Yeah.
is she just tops all of them. And to think that they gave us a broken Wanda, which I wasn't expecting them to do, which sadly it's one of those things. It's a defining character thing for her, is for her to be not okay.
Yeah.
To be broken, to be constantly having to deal with her power or whatever she's dealing with. So to see them carry that over in the movies made me really happy. I was kind of thinking about that and I was like, damn, they gave us that Wanda. Mm-hmm. You know, they gave us that Avengers disassembled Wanda, that she's not okay, that she's trauma and grief have broken this poor woman to lead her up to the older Avengers story, like Darker Than Scarlet and stuff like that John Byrne did and stuff like that.
And the disassembles where she comes and destroys the Avengers mansion, right?
Yeah, she kills Hawkeye. Like there's
Yeah, okay, I remember that.
Sorry, spoilers for a comic that's over 20 years old already, but you know.
But you know, and I think it's another really great thing they did that wasn't incredibly obvious, but I was kind of thinking about this today when I was at work. You know, they released Spider-Man No Way Home, and Feige announced it's a multiversal trilogy. It's WandaVision, No Way Home, and then Multiverse of Madness. But to have so much trauma be built into the Spider-Man movie, and he ends the movie as Spider-Man. He's gonna do his own thing. He is gonna keep being the hero. He's gonna keep being the protector of he's friendly to Spider-Man, and that's how he dealt with trauma. But then Wanda, on the other hand, couldn't handle it and became the villain. Having those two parallels was great.
Oh yeah, I think so too. I can agree with that. And it's, you know, and it shows to have somebody that powerful not okay, because everybody you know, whether it's Tony who has like PTSD after the Avengers movie,
a lot more of, in my opinion.
Oh yeah. But, you know, like, we don't really... Most of the heroes overcame it. So to actually have one of these heroes who's actually broken by that trauma is such a big, different step. And shoot, I'm here for that.
Yeah.
It's something different. It's like I was saying. It's like you're kind of referencing the comics and these characters. You're keeping the core concept of these characters, but you're building upon it in the Marvel movie universe, which is what I want.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing that bugs me more than when you got the look right of the character, but there's nothing of that character in what I'm seeing on the movie.
Yeah.
I feel that way about Superman. He was an absolutely great Superman. They did not know how to handle him as a Superman. They looked at it and said, you know what? Somebody with that much power, we need to show him turn evil. We need to show him be threatening. It's like, no, Superman's core essence is hope. And whenever he would stand there and he would smile or he would do something inspiring, you see it. He brought a lot of Superman for me. I just don't feel that nobody, whether it was Snyder, whether it was him and his brother when they wrote the script, whether it was Whedon, nobody was able to capture what he was bringing to that character as Superman. Nobody wants to write a good Superman. Everybody wants to look at Superman like a tragic character and be like, oh, what happens if he goes bad? Or, oh, what happens if he does this? It's like, that's not who Superman is. Superman was raised by good people. He is inherently good down to his soul. And he wants to help everybody. He wants to build everybody. He wants to inspire everybody. Which is why, like in Infinite Crisis, Batman tells him the last time you inspired anybody was when you were dead. You know what I mean? It hit that nail on the head because the DC universe had turned so dark by that point that Superman had to go back to those basics and build that hope again. And nobody knows how to handle that. But I hate it because I'm blanking on the actor's name right now.
Henry Cavill?
Yeah. You could see it there. He has that. He's Superman, not just in looks, but the way he smiles, the way he moves, the way people look up to him. He has it. It's just they don't know how to deal with it. Everybody's, like I said, everybody wants a dark Superman. Because nobody likes it. Even comic writers have that trouble. Yeah. Like, they don't know how to write somebody that's just so... Not even pure. Just like somebody so... Yeah. And he just wants to help. He can't stand that he's saving these people over here while somebody over there is dying. You know what I mean? It breaks his heart. But he's not gonna sink into sorrow or depression, or it's not gonna drive him. Like in Injustice, look what it takes for him to finally break. You know what I mean? Like, it takes something horrible like that to finally push him over the edge.
See, and what was so genius, because I love the games, but the comics are so good.
Oh, Tom Taylor's.
Oh, he killed it.
Yeah.
And what I love about the comic book is he does turn tyrannical, but he's not completely evil when he's tyrannical. It takes more and more pushing for it's a slow burn for him to become the evil Superman that he eventually becomes in the first game. And so going to the interpretation with Henry Cavill, like I love Zack Snyder and I love the interpretation of the DC world that he brought, but I think that if Warner Brothers wanted to compete with truly compete with Marvel and mimic them, right, go that route, they shouldn't have hired Snyder in the first place. But what I think they should have, obviously hindsight's not 2020 yet. We don't know if they're going to restore the Snyderverse, if they're going to, what the fuck is going to happen with Zaslav in control now. But what they should have done is they should have let the man do his job. Because they hired him for a 5-movie arc. It wasn't going to be a cinematic universe. It was going to be a 5-movie arc that, people like Patty Jenkins or David Ayer could come in and play with those characters and play in that world.
But they're all building off of what
Snyder's doing.
Yeah.
And what I think Snyder, he swung for the fences. There's no getting away from that. Like, he took a lot of big leaps. And I think, like, for someone like me who's been loving these comic books for so long, like, I'm so used to the altruistic Superman that's a good guy. He's always full of hope, and he's the symbol of the best that we can be. He's infallible almost, right? And then Batman being the guy, he's like, I don't kill. I have my moral code. It'll never break. I get pushed, but it'll never break. Seeing Snyder deconstruct him the way he did, but then he fixed Batman by the end of BVS. And he was on the way to fix Superman by the end of the saga. I think if he was given that room to breathe and finish his movies, it would have been so much better. Because, if Ben Affleck's Batman in BVS would have been doing, because he kills people. Like, you can't get around that. He kills people. He has machine guns. He has missiles on his Batmobile. He's killing goons. But for him to go through all of that, but then at the end of the movie skewer Superman, yeah, I would have been like, what the fuck is this? Why did you dress up Frank Castle in a batsuit? Like, that's ridiculous. But for him to get redeemed at the end, and he's like, oh, I've become the one thing I hate. I'm becoming Joe Chill. I can't do this. Right? And have him be redeemed by Superman, I think was fantastic. And I think that, because the only real complaint I have with what Snyder did was he rushed the death of Superman. Rushed it. Because I think Ben Affleck's the perfect Batman, Gal Gadot's perfect for Wonder Woman, and same with Henry Cavill as Superman. And I would have loved for by the end of this, whatever they were doing, to have all their heroes do the funeral for a friend. To see them all walk down Metropolis with Superman's casket. That would have been great. So it sucks that we can't have that. But everything else, I think, surrounding it was absolutely fantastic. Like, I get for his story, he wanted to get rid of Superman to make the need for a league. But they could have spent a couple more months in the writer's room figuring out a way to do that.
I think that's a lot of script polish for a lot of things. Yeah. is needed for plenty of these things. I was just thinking about that. Like, that just, they shouldn't. I get killing him, but you can't tell me that the world hates him and then he dies fighting Doomsday in the beginning of the Justice movie, the whole world's mourning him. Yeah. We didn't get that arc just even leading up to his death.
I agree.
But I agree, and that's probably something we were missing from BVS as well. Like, they showed us we have a retired Batman, and maybe he retired because the Joker killed Robin, but we don't show. They kind of mention it. Oh, he's a little bit more brutal now, but you're dealing with a broken Bruce Wayne, which is the reason why, they tried to come back and say, oh, well, those are rubber bullets and shit like that, but he's shooting fucking machine guns.
When did they say that?
It was something like people complaining, Batman don't kill, and they're like, oh, well, they said they're non-lethal or some crap like that. I remember hearing it somewhere.
Van and they all explode.
Yeah, but like, he's supposed to be a more vengeful kind of Batman.
He's the Frank Miller Dark Knight Returns, yeah.
But the fight scene where he broke in to save Superman's mom, which looked like it was right out of an Arkham Asylum video game. I was like, that's what I want. That's my Batman. That's a Batman fight scene right there.
Yep.
I think Matt Reeves got it right. I'd been wanting for so many years a detective Batman.
Batman with a flashlight. That's all I wanted was Batman with a flashlight, and we finally got it.
And I love what Pattinson brought to the movie. I think he brought it's something that these movies seem to be doing, and we were just talking about it with Spider-Man, and we get it with Batman, is we're not coming into these characters where they're sure of themselves. We're coming into Batman 2 years into his thing, and something that Pattinson does is he's unsure. When he's in that Batman costume, he is Batman. He's feeling it, but he doesn't make contact. He doesn't make eye contact when he's talking to people.
He's like an alien.
Yeah.
He just observes.
When he's Bruce Wayne, he's like a scared child talking to people. He doesn't even face the people he's talking.
Right.
He's like so unsure of himself. And by the end of that movie, you see him slowly starting to come out of that and slowly starting to learn like his confidence and stuff of it, because he's still that broken teenager at the beginning that's still trying to figure out his way, even though he's been doing it a couple years. Spider-Man, like we were just saying, we didn't know that there was no Uncle Ben because they just didn't talk about it. We're coming into these people's lives not as they're fully formed superheroes, but they're still kind of learning their stuff, and they're not giving us enough of their back past, not enough of their future, but they're still learning and they're growing. So by the time we get to A No Way Home, we're like, holy crap, this whole time
Yeah.
we've been building up to it, and it messes with us. The only thing I complain about, and it's not even really a complaint. I was sitting there and it got to the Riddler stuff and I was like, I'm fucking watching Seven.
Yeah.
This dude is Matt Reeves is idolizing Fincher's movies so much that we're watching Seven. Like they go into his apartment. It's literally Seven. He has books.
The books of the stacks of journals,
scribbles and everything, like living alone, like no, you know what I mean, and stuff like that kind of bugged me. But everything else I was here for. I enjoyed it.
I hated Riddler. Oh, I hated Riddler.
He's just an internet troll.
Yeah, I hated that he was an angry 4chan guy or like a sad Twitch streamer. Like, thank you guys for the 500 followers, and it should be really. Because I get that, like, it. I get like what they were trying to do to show like the evil sides of the internet and what that can turn into, but I mean, I don't know why he couldn't have just been a crazy guy. And like, why did he have to look like this? Like, he can act like the Zodiac Killer without having to look like him.
Another Fincher movie.
Yeah,
Zodiac.
Exactly. Zodiac.
Yeah.
He didn't have to look exactly like the Zodiac or like what we think the Zodiac Killer dressed up like. He could have just been a dude in a tattered suit, like a fucked up suit. He didn't have to be like that. He was Riddler in name only. Oh yeah.
But Colin Farrell, Penguin,
killed it.
Oh, he brought it.
Oh, killed it.
There's certain things like Colin Farrell brought it. I really like what Pattinson did. I love the detective element. There's that scene though outside the Iceberg Club where that car fires up. Oh, freaking chills.
Yeah.
I was like, that's how you freaking do a Batmobile. Just sitting there intimidating everybody, getting everybody nervous. It's like, I'm fucking coming for you.
And then it backfired. That was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But to watch, like watching Pattinson as Batman was great. I'm still not a huge fan of the suit. I get why he's wearing a bunch of armor. Like, I understand it.
It's not tactical gear. He's literally just armored up.
He's just armored up. And I understand because I really enjoy Arkham Origins. So I kind of understand that. But on the other hand, my big complaint with the movie was like they couldn't commit to who Batman was, I felt like. It's either he's very good for as far as he's been doing it, he's very good, or he has no idea what's going on.
He has a cop explaining to him what a rug puller is.
Right. It's like he can't they won't commit to, is he experienced or is he brand new? Like, 'cause I get that like 2 years is not a long time, but like he's saying, okay, I am the shadows. So it's like, so when he says something like that in that opening monologue, I'm like, so we're getting like a real stealth Batman. Like, this guy's a ninja. He's trained. But then an hour and a half later, 2 hours later, he's walking down a hallway getting shot point blank. Like, that's not Batman. I'm sorry, but that's an Iron Man thing. That is not Batman.
Yep.
And then to have him, like, I don't care how good your armor is. Like, you are taking like hundreds of rounds to the chest. Dude, you're going down.
That's a problem with every time I watch any of these movies, especially the Marvel movies. People are falling freaking off buildings. People are falling 6 flights, bouncing off cars, rolling down hills. Whenever he does that scene where he goes off of the police building and he's gliding with his cape and stuff, and he hits the car and he rolls.
Oh, he should have been dead.
Everybody, Peter Parker, even in the first Spider-Man movie, Tobey Maguire fell and hit a car and he got up and just kind of like,
oh, my back.
You know, like, I guess having superhero powers makes you invulnerable to breaking bones and pain or something.
Well, that's a perfect example, because it's like they needed to commit to, is this Pattinson Batman hyper realistic, or is there some suspension of disbelief?
Because he takes that buckshot to the chest and it screws him up. But like you were saying, he takes hundreds of shots as well from guns. So what is it about the buckshot that puts him down and actually has him down for the count that he needs an adrenaline shot?
Was that adrenaline though? Or was that venom?
It looked like venom because of the color that they made it. I just kind of like, my mind just went to adrenaline. Like, he just shot himself with adrenaline.
Right, but I think that'd be a really cool way to introduce venom.
I think so too.
Maybe he's making that, it gets into the wrong hands, and then Bane is one of the big bads next.
Which it would make, I mean, that would be a smart way to do it, because Venom got introduced in the comics before Bane did.
Right.
And Batman got addicted to the Venom and had to like actually wean himself
and
off of it.
And a drug addict.
Yeah. So, I mean, that would be a cool way to do it and build up to it. But.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know. I love watching the Christopher Nolan movies. I think it's just a great, like, there's problems in the third one for sure, but like, it's good storytelling. But those movies did so well, and they convinced Hollywood and like brainwashed Hollywood that Batman has to be hyper realistic, that Batman has to be super grounded, and Batman's a superhero.
I was gonna say it doesn't have to, and that's the best part of Batman, is that Batman can operate in those two worlds. Batman can be a detective. Batman can just focus on his crazy people that run around his city, but at the same time, he can go and he can fight alongside the Justice League. You know what I mean?
Darkseid, yeah.
And that was Grant Morrison had it. People, you know what? Out of all the Batman stories that I probably love, out of some of the best Batman stories there are, I think Grant Morrison's run is solid from beginning to end, but he understood it. He said this is somebody who has to fight the Joker one night, and the next night he has to go up against Darkseid for the fate of the universe. You know what I mean? He has to live in both these worlds, among gods and among regular people. And it's just, I love it.
That's great. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of the Batman International stuff. But I think it's hit and miss for me. But like I said, if we're looking at the Omnis, first two, you can't go wrong. It's so good, and I think that's the biggest argument for why we need to keep Affleck, because he could be like the supernatural Batman, and then you keep Pattinson for grounded only, because they're obviously not going to do anything super insane.
Oh no,
in that trilogy. And if they're smart about it, honestly, let that Batman grow, and don't they need to get out of the mindset of trilogies. If you have to make movies, do 5, do 6.
Of wanting to do it all right away.
Yeah, let Batman grow, let any character grow, let them evolve. I mean, you're getting these actors while they're relatively young. Use them. Give them all the money they fucking want. Give them all the whatever. Treat them well, for Christ's sake. Treat them well. And
is that really too much to ask for from any of them?
Oh my God, I know, right? But because I would love to see, because Pattinson looks good in the cowl. He looks so good in the cowl. And I don't understand what they were going for with the cowl. It's like a mixture of Gotham by Gaslight, a little bit of Adam West, a little bit of Jim Lee. It's weird, but they were going for. But I would love, I want to see Batman in a classic black on gray, yellow utility belt. I want the underwear. I want the fucking...
I do too. Trust me, I do too.
Strongman underwear, you know? Make them look like they classically do, and really let them breathe. Really let them...
Marvel figured out how to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's got to be a way. I think Nolan grounded Batman a little too much.
Yes.
Made him a little too everyman. That's why I think the third movie kind of starts falling apart. But yeah. I think the original trilogy, my biggest problem when it comes to that is Goyer. I don't think Goyer gets superheroes. And it sucks because he's tied to so many superhero stuff, whether it's movies or comics. I don't think Goyer...
Why do you say that?
Goyer just... He doesn't seem to understand it. He doesn't seem to understand these heroes and what makes them heroes. To him, it's how could I break them down? How can I make them feel more human? How can I make them feel not what they are. DC Universe, and people say that's what's the problem with DC is, but they're not just regular superheroes the way the Marvel ones are. They're gods.
Right. That's perfect. Like Marvel are, for the most part, regular people who became gods. DC is gods who came to regular people.
They're legends, all of them. Whether it's Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, you know what I mean? These are people who their level of power is just beyond anything, which goes back to what we're saying, Superman having to fight alongside these people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, it makes, I don't know. It's just crazy. I just don't think obviously DC has a problem. They have a problem. They want too much and ask too little, and then they just crap on everything else that they have, which we see on a weekly basis.
Yeah, and it's, again, I just hope that, because it's obvious that whether, like, James Gunn obviously makes the money, then...
Suicide Squad was great. Peacemaker was great. The Harley Quinn movie and the Birds of Prey movie, that movie was fucking dope. Like, they get it. Though doing those little movies...
Joker even. Yeah. With Todd Phillips. They made $1 billion. And I don't know. I think that, like, when you have stuff like DC, because in my opinion, DC is inherently darker than Marvel. And I think DC is at its best when it's a bit darker, when it's a bit more detective comics, right? Inherently a little more serious. And they have HBO Max. Utilize that, for Christ's sake.
Do it the way Disney's doing. Make TV shows. Don't just do tie-ins or these things that don't even tie into the movies.
Right. Like, I would honestly, if I was running the show, I would give Snyder and company all the money they want to bring back, because Henry Cavill obviously has a little bit of disdain towards Warner Brothers, and so does Affleck. I mean, those motherfuckers sent him back to rehab. And so bring them back and let them finish their thing on HBO Max. Let it be as long and as brutal as they want. But at the same time, make your Flash movie. Make your fucking Black Adam movie. Whatever. I think the mapping of Black Adam is genius. They're telling a Justice Society movie from the villain's perspective. I think that's genius.
Well, what they need to do is, and something that DC always made different from Marvel, and what DC can do when it comes to the movies, is if I go to my shelves, I can grab, like you said, the Morrison Batman run. I can grab Gotham by Gaslight. I could go grab any Superman story, whether it's like the Man of Steel or something, you know what I mean? All-Star Superman. I could go grab Jeff Johns, like Rebirth. I can grab... DC is good about having this solid 6-issue, 12-issue, or in Morrison's case, you know, this grand epic that can contain in 3 omnibuses of books, whereas Marvel, it's a continuous story.
Yeah.
You can go and you could grab House of M, but what Bendis did was still play off of this, when the Avengers fell apart, you know, it led it, disassembled, House of M, Civil War, like everything built off of it. Marvel has that continuous thing where it's hard just to go and say, oh, you want a definitive Captain America story? Oh, go read this. You know what I mean? You can kind of say that with the Brubaker run, but even then, once you get past the Winter Soldier and stuff, it started kind of getting a little bit more spread out, a little bit more open, where DC, you can go, give me a Batman story. Go read Dark Knight Returns. Go read Year One. You know, you can... DC was always good about that. You could do that with the movies. You could tell a Harley Quinn movie. You could tell a Suicide Squad movie. You could tell a Superman movie by itself without having to lead up to a Justice League movie. And I think that's where DC, if they focused right, that's how they should handle their movies. Let Marvel tell their one continuous story. You're able to look at your characters and go, we have a character in Batman who's in absolutely everything. 20 books a month come out with his name on it. He's had 10 movies, you know what I mean? But we could come out with a Batman movie and tell a Batman movie without it having to connect to anything. But if we wanted to, we could have Superman pop in a movie and be like, they don't even have to fight. They can help each other, you know what I mean? One of the best cartoon episodes I ever saw was World's Finest. And it was one of the Bruce Timm's one with Batman and Superman. And it's probably one of the best moments, because they got Superman, they got Batman, and they weren't fighting each other. They were friends that still had to come together and stop common enemies.
Me and my chick just, she'd seen it for the first time, but I was rewatching Batman and Superman Public Enemies.
Oh, that's
fantastic. Good. Fantastic. Off the Jeff Loeb adapted run.
You know, Jeff Loeb, when Jeff Loeb's solid, he's solid. I was thinking about this, and I don't know what it is. There is something about writing for a big company that must break you. And I don't know if I don't know if it's DC maybe, but Marvel it must, because there's diminishing returns. Look at Bendis. By the time Bendis left Marvel, everybody was ready for him to leave Marvel. But he ushered in an entire stratagem for Marvel from the time he started on Avengers to the time he left. Like, it's literally one story that you can read. He guided that universe. But by the time he left, everybody was ready for him to leave. Brubaker's Captain America run, like I was saying, that is some of the best Captain America I have ever read. By the time he left Captain America, nobody really cared. It was already time. Like, it's like, oh, really? Okay, bye. You know what I mean? Anybody that's done long form storytelling at Marvel, after a long time, it just seems like it just gets less and less. Jeff Loeb's the same. He had those great color books, but read some of his X-Men stuff, like his later stuff, like X-Sanction and things like that. It's like, what are you even doing? Like, why are you writing this stuff? Look at his Ultimate stuff. Ultimatum is horrible.
That's what I've heard. I have it in a floppy, and I just haven't.
It's probably one of the worst books I've ever written. It's just mean-spirited. It's horrible. It's like everything that's wrong about the Ultimate Universe was in that book. It's awful. But it's like, I don't know. There's something about writing for a company for so long that must break you. I don't know what it is, which is hard because they do all these retreats and stuff. They all talk to each other about this are the plans for the next year and stuff. But some of these people who had some of the most stellar runs on books, by the time they leave, it's like you wore out your welcome. It's time to go. You know what I mean? And it's crazy. And I don't know why I've been thinking about that, but something about that had popped that up in my head. And I was just like, God, because Bendis takes up a whole bookshelf of my stuff, and I can read it and I enjoy it. But like by the time he got to his X-Men stuff, it was like, all right, yeah, you've been here a while already, you know? Even by the time he was finishing his Avengers run, it's like, okay. Like there's still 2 more Omnis that I'm excited for to come out of the Brubaker stuff. And even then it's starting to get to that point after the Winter Soldier stuff where you're just kind of like, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess this is where we are. You know what I mean? Unless you're Marvel and you actually break your creator the way they did Hickman, to where Hickman's like, I can't do this anymore. I love you guys. This was my plan. Peace out. I'm going away. Have fun with it.
What happened with him?
He came out as the head writer of X. So it wasn't supposed to be like, this is Jonathan Hickman's X-Men, like the way it was his Fantastic Four or his Avengers or anything like that, where it's just a creative vision. He was literally the head of the table. He came up with the stories. Everybody else put their input. It all branched together. Everything fed off of it. He was the head of the office. So he had the grand vision. This is what I want to do with the X-Men. This is what we're going to do. And then everybody gets to come in with their input. And this is what I'm going to do with my story. Okay, this is how we could tie this together. Everything works off like that. Well, then, so he had everything lined up. And then COVID happened. Publishing happened. Diamond shut down and everything like that. And Hickman came to them and he said, okay, we can't publish books right now. Here's what we do. He's like, we could go to a digital model and we can do these books. We could do this. He had a whole stratagem written out on how to carry on and continue with the story and make it just like explosive. And then they got books back up and running like a month later. They completely derailed everything that he was trying to set up and do and stuff like that. And Marvel is just like, no, and so it like completely screwed everything. So it felt like books were just kind of spinning their wheels, not getting anything done. And Hickman was like, I can't do this with you guys. He's like, I tried. It's frustrating. I think I would be happier doing my own stuff. He's like, I'll finish out what I got finished out, which was like Inferno was supposed to be like the end of it. And he bounced off to just go back to creator owned. But yeah, Marvel like broke him with the way they did it, because he was just like, well, he's like, he had grand plans for the X-Men. I mean, just huge plans for where it was to go. And then, COVID screwed everything up, not just for comics, for movies and everything, but he actually had an idea of where to take it and be like, we could still do this. We could still do great things. And then Marvel's like,
See, and that's so sad, because like the X-Men, what's so beautiful about the X-Men is, and I hope my chick is listening right now because she loves the X-Men. Like that is her jam, right?
Oh, yeah,
it's Spider-Man and the X-Men. What's so beautiful about the X-Men is they operate so well as they're like a whole other Marvel universe. They're like their whole other thing. And so like some of my friends, when they want to read Marvel books, I'll always recommend them like a Spider-Man. Like I'll recommend like a Spider-Man or maybe like a decent Avengers. But then I will say, well, X-Men is dope. You should read this. Like she had never read the Dark Phoenix saga in its entirety, and I have the first printing of that Omni. Like, I mean, watching her read that for the first time, like a 10-year-old, like opening a Christmas present for the first time, because Chris Claremont is just that damn good. And from my understanding with the X-Men, you know, after Claremont left, nobody really gave a shit until Hickman showed up.
Well, it's X-Men got me. X-Men didn't get me into comics. I was already leaning towards comics. X-Men got me seriously into collecting comics. The first issue I ever bought off the stand of a serious comic that wasn't like Archie or something like that, or, you know, like some package of comics that came together like DC books from the mid 80s or something, was The Middle of Inferno. And I was freaking hooked. X-Men got it. I had to go back. I read back everything. I had like the original
old school X-Men Inferno.
Which
they just made an Omni of.
Yes. I had the original printing, collection printing of Dark Phoenix Saga that I read over and over. Like, you know what I mean? I did everything. Like, I soaked up X-Men. And X-Men was one of those things that after Claremont left, which is kind of like forced out, but it just became, how can we repackage this in new ways? And it wasn't until like Morrison brought new life into it. But then after Morrison left, it just went right back into the old stuff. And then it's just spinning its wheels. So that's what was nice about Hickman, because Hickman came in and said, no, this is how we shake up absolutely everything, make it not only new again, but make it interesting again, while taking hints to what's in the past, but not being beholden to it, not having to go back over again and redoing old stuff. He's like, this is how we could take it into the future. And, you know, there's those few creators that really got it like that. Morrison. I mean, I will sing Morrison to the heavens. I'm a Morrison mark, completely from top to bottom. So I can't help it. So to me, you know what I mean? I hear people say, oh, he's just drugged out of his mind and people don't understand it. And no. But I freaking love Morrison. Yeah. Final Crisis, amazing.
Same.
Amazing.
I agree.
You know, his X-Men run, amazing. His Batman run, amazing. Like, I will sing Morrison to the high heavens. But his X-Men run, it's top 3 for me. You know, after Claremont and Hickman. But I've literally been an X-Men fan since the late 80s, you know? Even going back to, they had this really crappy pilot that they played on TV cartoon around the time of Amazing Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. They had the X-Men appear on an episode of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends that just like, oh my God, who are these X-Men? Like, what's going on? You know what I mean? And it's funny, you get an Australian Wolverine in that episode.
That's funny.
It's hilarious. So yeah, X-Men's my jam, like all the way back. And what Hickman brought with the X-Men is just, it was amazing. It got you excited for the X-Men again.
Damn. Well, I'm very excited to finish X of Swords and read Inferno, and I want to get the proper Omni for X-Men. And I think this is a beautiful place to end it, man.
I know. Sorry, that was geek talk, everybody, all night long.
That's exactly what I wanted to. I needed that after my fucking 7-day work week. I needed the. But yeah, this has been a lot of fun, man. I really appreciate you coming on and taking the time. I know you're busy as shit.
I appreciate you having me on.
I'm glad you're busy as shit too.
Oh yeah.
So for
good days.
Where is Archetype here in Albuquerque? How can people get a hold of you, your Instagram, all that good stuff?
Oh yeah. If you live in Albuquerque, Archetype can be found off of Manal and University. It's like 2019 Manal. We're like about a block and a half east of University, so we're just kind of right there in the middle of the city, sort of. You can find me on Instagram, Stolen Heart Tattoo, all one word. It's better than Facebook and stuff like that. And even that has like my contact information, like my email and stuff like that to get a hold of me, or just going through archetypetattoo.com or even the Instagram page. You can find a lot of the work and stuff just to see what I do, see if you like what I roll with.
Well, I gotta tell you, I endorse his shit. I wear it every day, and I couldn't be happier with the work. I couldn't have had a better time tonight, man. I really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it. I don't get to just spew geek stuff off the top of my head all that often.
All right. Well, thank you again. And thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. And we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.